Hello, hello. We are here. Hopefully everyone can hear me. I've been having some sound troubles where like people coming in and calling me on Facebook or Zoom or whatever, and things aren't working. So I'm hoping that everything is going well. Um, let's see here. Where are we? Um, Preston, please read Book of the New Sun by Gene Wolfe. He's one of George's mentor, and that series is full of amazing story riddles. I've actually heard about that book before, and I need to look it up again because you're not the first person to say. I think even like a couple times people have been like, "Oh, New Sun by by Gene Wolfe." Um, but look at this real quick. New Sun by Gene Wolfe is a four-volume science fiction novel. Solar Cycle. It's actually pretty short. Well, originally intended to be a 40,000 word novella. Chronicles the journey of Severian, a journeyman torturer who's disgraced and forced to wander. Um, but yeah, I'll try to check this out. Oh, right, this is the one where they all live in South America, and it's clearly okay. Okay, this is ringing a bell again. But I should check this out. Um, by the way, really funny. I watched Critical Drinker's Prey review, and then the message came on, and I laughed. I didn't realize when he did the original Prey review that he did it based on a trailer, which is just hilarious. Like, oh my god, like you're gonna review a movie based on a trailer, and then oh god, um, I mean, oh, um, a lot of Taiwan stuff in here, real quick. I was reading the really simple guide to China and Taiwan. Wonder if Preston would agree on it, that it's a really simple situation. You know, global politics is kind of funny in that I do think that there is a point in which when you learn way too much about a place, that there's diminishing returns, and in fact, you can even get to a position where you start understanding and coming to solutions less because you've taken in too many factors. And I mainly think about Israel Palestine with regards to that. That Israel Palestine is actually a pretty simple situation, but when you talk to people that are experts on Israel Palestine, they'll start bringing in all of this little nuance, and they'll be like, well, right of return on this and this day, and the Shempa farms, and it's like just it's real simple. Like just like someone that doesn't know very much would just be like, why don't you just do the Oslo lines and make them two countries, and that would work. So like a layman could solve the situation, but the problem is that there's so many experts like going in with this like level of nuance, and obviously it's not an equal like playing field with regards to brokering because one side has all of the power and one side doesn't. um but yeah, China and Taiwan, there is a lot of detail and nuance to it, but you don't need to really know very much except that the Taiwanese have been independent for a long time and think of themselves as independent, and it's a completely different place, and the Chinese believe it's part of China. Like, you don't really need to know and want it, like you don't really need to know very much beyond that. Like a lot of people start going into like, oh, the semiconductor industry, and oh, the reason China wants it is because of the semiconductor industry. Well, it's like, well, they wanted it long before that, and you know, and people get into, oh, well, they want it because the shame they felt of the nationalists getting away, and you're like, yeah, sure, they probably still just want it, and so um, it's not that complicated. It's one country thinks it's part of another country, and and the piece thinks it's independent. It's you can get into details, and there's some fascinating details, but you know, it's not really that important. I mean, it's just that Taiwan is a democracy, and China is not, and so it's it kind of makes you um, think, well, it'd be really sucky to give up a kind of democratic place to an undemocratic place. Um, but you can get into like the long history of the the Qing Empire and the Japanese and the nationalists and the RR Ba incident and Puyi and Chiang Kai-shek and Chiang Ching-kuo and all these sorts of things. But it's not really that important. It's just country as a democracy. It thinks itself independent. China is not a democracy. Thinks it's part of China. Done. You can get into these things, but it's not that big deal. The how's your super spy dinner with Pelosi? Blink once for good, twice for not good. I think that whole situation I've been following the Western media and how much people have been contacting me about it, and it's kind of a whole lot of nothing. Pelosi planned this trip for a long time. She got COVID, had to reschedule. That gave the Chinese plenty of time to plan a military exercise. They've been looking for chances to do that because China hasn't been to war since like some minor border skirmishes in the late 70s against Vietnam. They want opportunities to practice. Like, it's not like America that has a continuing war forever and has constant like practice with their military. Like, we see this with Russia. Like, they're out of practice and they can't invade Ukraine. And so it's not really anything. It's the media making something into a crisis that it's where it's not. Like, they all kind of understand. But so no one here like living like people like were messaging me like, oh my gosh, it must be really scary. No, like every day is exactly the same. Like there's no difference. Like it's not a crisis. Like the crisis media like wants everyone to think it's a crisis. So it's just okay. Well, a lot of everybody's very excited today. Okay. I saw some YouTube video that China is collapsing like a mofo. There's a lot of those. I do find that the China is collapsing videos, they're there's a whole bunch of these things out there. They're not collapsing anytime soon. I mean, they're pretty like there are aspects of China that are problems, like the fact that they have a big employment problem. I think youth unemployment in China is like 20%. But that's been the case of China for like a while. Not necessarily youth unemployment, but they have this huge hundreds of millions of migrant like workers who like follow around and do construction projects, and they keep employing them, so that they don't kind of rebel. And this has been going on for my entire life. So, when people say like China's collapsing, it's probably not. Probably nothing's going to happen like too fast. Like these collapses happen very slowly. The Roman Empire took 1,000 years to fall. So, I don't think that all these videos like it's just click videos. But main problem is that China doesn't want to lose face. Yeah, a lot of people get into this idea like about Asian face and what it makes people do. So when you arrive in China, one of the things that foreigners are really obsessed with is this idea of like probably the most important words you kind of learn when you first get to China is like guanxi, which is connections. It also kind of means communication and sorts of other things, but and mianzi, which is face, and face is kind of, if I were to conceptualize it, it's not just like your rep and your honor. It's kind of like the opposite of embarrassment. So like my first time to China, I was a English teacher, And it was really, really difficult to get kids to talk because, learning languages is very embarrassing, and you're constantly saying stupid things, constantly. Like even today, I go out and just, you have an experience where you forget the word for straw and you sound like an idiot, or you use the wrong tone, and that's just that's just every single day of learning a language is being embarrassed. But it was always like this description of it being like, well, all the kids are losing face, and they hate to lose face, and this feeling of embarrassment. The Chinese absolutely hate the feeling of embarrassment, and I do think it is like that. But the unfortunate thing as well is that among the Chinese, they spent a lot of time in school instilling in them that Taiwan is part of China. Like it's so ingrained that even when I meet educated Chinese people who have left China, who don't even like China, who live in Europe or whatever, and you ask them about Taiwan, like they get this like feeling, and I say it's the equivalent of going to a ball game and for an American and hearing the national anthem. Like, even like I understand the national anthem is bullshit propaganda. It's not even a very good anthem. It's really weird. It's written by an absolute racist. Like it's just the whole thing sucks. The whole process sucks. This idea of indoctrinating people with these songs to bind them together and stuff. People, so that they'll all kill each other or die for each other in war and stuff. Like it's stupid. And yet, when I hear that national anthem, like I feel something inside, right? Like I understand that I've been programmed from a very, very young age. And so it's all Chinese people have been programmed with this like very emotional idea that Taiwan is part of China. And which means like all politicians that are going to grow up and be running the Chinese government are going to have that feeling. And it's really, really difficult to, when you actually sit down and say like, well, what do you want? What do you want with Taiwan? Like, who cares? Like, who cares? Like, who cares? Like, you want 23 more million people? You're 1.3 billion people. Why do you want 23 more million people? Like it's not that big a deal. Like just let it go. Let it go. Like come on. Like but no, it's so ingrained in them emotionally just from years and years of propaganda. So yeah, I mean there's lots of reasons that people say that China wants Taiwan. Ranging from political to historical to emotional to face to economic. It doesn't really matter. It's so part of like China political policy and the mechanism that it's hard to go against it. Like, and I would say the same thing with like Americans. Like Americans aren't even that attached to say Israel, but our political system and apparatus is so constructed to be pro-Israel that it would take a lot to undo that, and so like China has the emotion and the political apparatus, everything in place that they can't let Taiwan go. They can't let it go. But I don't think anything will happen anytime soon. I think it'll be another 50 years and we'll be in the same situation. China mainland thinks it's close to the point where it can militarily take over Taiwan. I don't think they're that stupid. They can't take over Taiwan. I mean, I think I've been over this in a previous stream, but like I think they talk about like the 3-to-1. We talked about the 3-to-1 ratio in military, that in order to take land, you need, and this is just land to land. There's a safe assumption that you need to have 3 times as many attackers as defenders because it's much easier. And so you kind of say, well, the Taiwan military is 100,000 people or so. So like, is China really, or 150,000 people? So is China really going to send like 500,000 people? And that's land to land. Like Taiwan is an island. So now we got to get landing, like you got to get landing boats and all these sorts of things that they just don't have. They don't have. I think there's an old joke about the Million-Man Swim and stuff like this, but no, it's just not going to happen. Like they would have to build all of those boats, which would take forever. And then you get to Taiwan and it's super mountainous, and like it doesn't actually, like, you can't just land anywhere. It's super defendable. I think in the United States, back when Japan had Taiwan, there was a plan for the U.S. to try to invade the island, and it was planning on like a 10-to-1 ratio, and it's just not going to happen. There's no wars happening. Nothing's happening. There's no crises. Everything's going to be it's going to be status quo for a long time. Um, uh, which Song of Ice character is most like Jeff Bezos? I don't know if I even know Jeff Bezos as like a person enough. Like, he's not in the media as much as, say, um, Elon Musk, but so you can sort of say, "Oh, that guy's nuts." I saw him go into space with his brother and stuff, um, and he just kind of gave a lot of lip service, and he was really weird in that he was all muscled now, and had a bunch of injections in his face and stuff like that. He looked really weird. I mean, Elon Musk looks a little weird now too, with all the fake hair and stuff. If you want something really weird, like, look at Google Elon Musk, like, young bald, and compare him to what he looks like now. So I don't know if I know enough about Jeff Bezos to comment on him. I know people are kind of like, very fearful of Amazon owning everything, and I am too, but uh, I don't know if he's gone off the deep end yet. Or at least just he may have. I just haven't seen the videos on it. Have you read The Prince of Nothing by Scott Baker? It's a Song of Ice and Fire, but in a fever dream. It's part of the Second Apocalypse series. I have not read it. I'm unfamiliar with it. Let's see. Look this up. Prince of Nothing. R. Scott Baker. Canadian author, first published in 2004. Primary influence was Tolkien and Herbert. Well, there's quite a few of the books. They're still coming out, it seems like. Aspect Emperor, Unholy Consult. Oh, it's a lot of character with umlauts over the vowels of their names. Um, any plans to read The Expanse? I read like half of The Expanse. I didn't get all the way through, but I've read some. Um, Actually, this is an interesting question. What's your favorite character from House of the Dragon? It's hard to have a favorite character other than Daemon Targaryen, in that we don't know anything about these people. Like, no, I don't think anyone has an emotional attachment to Fire and Blood or the Rogue Prince or anything like that. Like, we're not given those conversations. We're not given time to get to know the characters. They're hardly characters at all. I mean, we've got these kind of multiple perspectives, and where we're kind of guessing on what they're doing. So it's like, how do I even feel about Rhaenyra? Um, it when it's all kind of negative propaganda against her. Like, could she have been a perfectly nice woman? Maybe, probably. Damon's a little different in that there's negative propaganda against him, but there's also clearly things he did that are just jerky. Like, I can't, like him killing the son of the Sea Lord of Bravos. Like, he was pretty much, a young man, a child practically. Um, you know, no matter what perspective you're from, like, that seems like it's going to be a pretty crappy thing to do just so that you can marry his betrothed. So there's certain things, but it's really difficult to have favorite characters or even like think about these people's personalities. But Dragon Man asks me, what languages do you know well and how well? I studied Spanish for many years in high school and college. I feel like I can't speak it anymore, but there at one time I was having conversations in Spanish. I learned Chinese, Mandarin, which I can have conversations in. I can read pretty well actually Chinese, but I'm not very good at speaking because I'm a very bad listener when it comes to language. I studied a little bit of Japanese. I studied a little bit of Jordanian EMEA and a little bit of Egyptian EMEA, though that's probably all gone. I mean, I can get around. I can buy tickets and order food and stuff, but that's about it. But it's mainly Chinese and Spanish are the two languages that I put a lot of time into. Um, you can drop into a Song of Ice and Fire at any point and tell any character any one thing and watch how it would change the story. And what would you say? A lot of people get into these what ifs, like uh so it's it's on how things would really change. And I guess when I really started thinking about the what ifs, I used to just be like, why are we even thinking about what ifs? Like, what's the difference? But then once I started thinking about time traveling Bran, and that there might have been previous iterations of this timeline, and that what ifs might actually matter, I did start thinking about that kind of stuff. Like, I'd really want to see how things played out if the dire wolves were not found in the snow, and but it's mainly only for my own curiosity. Like, I don't necessarily think the world would work out better, but for my own curiosity, I'm like, how would things have played out? And that's one I've thought about a lot. Like, if they didn't find the direwolves in the snow, that means Catelyn doesn't try to convince Ned to go south. Does he stay? What does Bran do? Does he fall from his tower? Like, all these sorts of things you start thinking about in alternate universe kind of stuff. But it's not for it's not in any sense that I think that the world would come out really well. I think clearly it doesn't, no matter what you do, because Bran has been playing with the timeline and trying out these different patterns. And Littlefinger is always going to be causing some trouble, and Varys is always going to be causing trouble. So I don't necessarily think anything is good. It's not, you can't go down to one decision and be like, if only I hadn't done this. But that's the big incident where I'm like, how would the world have unfolded had there been no direwolves in the snow? Chinese is a dumb language. Seriously, design an alphabet. So here's the thing about that. And this is a big thing that a lot of Americans or English speakers have difficult doing, and that is divorcing the written language and the spoken language. Written language and spoken language are two different things. You learn to speak long before you learn to read. Okay, so you gotta now, if you want to say the Chinese written language is stupid, yeah, I mean it's clearly inferior to like a language and an alphabet. And there was a time in which they really thought about getting rid of the characters and going with just pinyin, which would have been a revolution. And some languages did. I think Vietnamese, was using Chinese characters before, and Korean as well. And then they went and they invented their own alphabets and stuff like that. I mean, just objectively speaking, it takes students much longer to learn a written language with Chinese and stuff. I think the Chinese language is fun. It's beautiful. Like the written Chinese language is fun and beautiful, and there's some neat aspects to it. But yeah, it was really it's I think objectively speaking, like even most Chinese people realized that it was like a problem. And they were very, the communists were very close to saying, yeah, we're done. And then they didn't, they just went with the simplified alphabet, which causes Chinese language learners like me even more difficulty, because now I've got to learn two sets. of characters. So they've just made my job harder. But it's um real quick. Would you consider China Uncensored or America Uncovered a part of YouTube's right-wing grifters? I've never seen these channels. I'm going to look them up real quick. Hold on. $1.8 million. Face off over Taiwan, defending Taiwan. China's bike sharing disaster. Oh gosh. I mean, I don't know if these are. It definitely seems to be a grift. Like every single thumbnail is. I mean, this looks exactly like some of those like anti-women sci-fi and fantasy channels where like every single um, thumbnail is trying to get people to click, um, which is so. I mean, I have to watch these to kind of know, but I can't. Just looking at the headlines, it looks pretty sensationalist. So I would not really take any of that, any of these stories very seriously. One thing that's out there, there's this really weird, creepy organization called the Epic Times, which is they are super, super anti-China, but they're also super, super pro-Trump. It's like really, really right-wing kind of stuff. And they're kind of, hello. You there?
Yeah, hopefully I don't echo this time. I
No,
uninstalled
no,
OBS. That was the cause of my echo last
oh,
time.
okay,
By the way,
okay.
kind of uncensored. Actually, I watch them every now and then. They get recommended to me. I love
Uh,
his theme song. He's a very catchy theme song. Listen to it if you can.
okay.
But
But
he's not
yeah,
grifty, not my opinion.
yeah, I mean, it's clearly they're trying to get clicks. What's funny is that when you're in China and you look at the Chinese media, they're kind of like the same, like, but it's America or India that they're trying to bash. Um, saying, "Oh, protests erupt in America," or I remember when I lived there, there was Bill Clinton went on a trip to New Delhi, and like the headline was like, Bill Clinton arrives in India met by protests, and it's like it was like 20 people, like like being like, boo, Bill Clinton. Like, why would Indians in the year 1999 like hate Bill Clinton? Like, there's no reason, but it was like 20 people. um but yeah, I mean, anything sort of sensationalist and unnuanced is going to be is going to be um it's going to be biased. Like, you could tell right from the headlines that it's grift stuff. Like, the thing is, the world isn't that crazy like day to day, so like, anything that's a sensationalist headline is going to be misleading. Same with like history. When people are like, "Oh, a really interesting thing that happened in history," you're like, "No, it probably wasn't interesting. They're lying to you. Like, history is really boring and dry." And when they say, "Oh, this really fascinating thing happened in history," no, it didn't. It did not. You're misconstruing things. It wasn't that interesting. Yeah. So how's it going, Carmine? Carmine, you
I was
alive?
typing something. I'm here. No. Oh, by the way, like I was telling Preston, and I'll tell the audience as well. I am setting up in the middle of setting up OBS so I can start streaming because that's where the algorithm is.
Yeah.
I got fucked in the ass with the algorithm a while back, so I need to get
I'm
back
I
in its
am
good
looking I am
graces.
looking forward to how you're going to handle it without being seen, because I know that you could wear a cloak like Todd in the Shadows.
Tied of the Shadows. Why does that sound familiar? Let me look
You
this
ever
guy
watch
up.
Todd in the Shadows? Todd in the
I
Shadows
feel
is a
like I
great channel. He's been doing
Shadows.
stuff for a long time. long time. I think he's been he used to be part of like the channel Awesome, like way back in the day. He
That's
used to
why.
date Lindsay
Don't say.
Ellis.
Oh God, poor
Uh
guy.
way back in the day.
My
He's
condolences to him.
he's been doing great work for like solid decade. It's a good channel. And so but it's just him like on a piano in a hoodie, like not showing his face.
There are downsides to not putting yourself on camera on YouTube. The audience is
Hmm.
not as attached to you.
Yeah.
Um, they're not as loyal to you in a sense. It's weird, but it's a thing. But nah, I'll manage. You're gonna come on with me. I figured out how to get you on. I've been doing some tests with someone recently, so you're gonna have to get
Hmm.
on Discord with me though.
Yeah. That's fine. That's fine. You
Hmm.
know,
We'll do the Telltale
I'm
game.
not technologically a child. Like,
I had to teach you how to use Discord just a tad though for your
I,
for
that's
for
fine.
Destiny.
Yeah, but I know how to use Discord. I know how to use Zoom. I know how to use Skype. Like,
You
it's
won't be on
fine.
camera though. I don't think I can put that on there.
um, real quick, how's the Alayne fanfic going? Looking forward to it. Submissions. I think the deadline was the 5th, and so the submissions are in. I've been reading through them. Um, they're really fantastic. For a while, I was like, oh, I was really worried that I wasn't going to have a very good opening to the chapter. So I'm really obsessed with having like a really good like hook to pull one in, probably even more so than George's. So it's like I really want a good hook. Like you're gonna read the beginning and be like, oh my god, I've got to keep reading. So I was really worried because most of them were like, oh, the day was crisp and the weather was cold, and I was like, that's not good enough. And then one of them, I was like, oh, that's a brilliant mwah, kind of idea on how to start it, and so I was really happy with that submission because I'm like, oh, I'm definitely going to start it that way. And so I'm pretty excited. I'm trying to. I wanted to give let's see the shout out to. Let's see if I can give a shout out to who did that one. I've got to look this up.
Watch, it's George who actually joined the fanfic, and it's secretly
It's
George.
Georgia. It was James Worth's idea on how to start it. Like I'm just saying, like um, I'm not saying that like I'm not going to play with the language or necessarily like and things like that. But his idea on how to start the fan fiction was brilliant idea, and so I've got to give him a shout out on his submission because that was for a while I was like, I gotta have some hook. What's good? That was a good idea. Good idea. So it's going well. I'm gonna start the writing, start the combining, start putting stuff together. I think the big challenge is going to be fitting all of the ideas in within a word limit, which might be tough because there's a lot going on. It's like 3 days of a tournament with a lot of stuff, mystery nights and all sorts of like so many names, so many characters. It's like probably more characters than any other chapter in Ice and Fire, and it's just so much stuff going on. White Ravens and such. So, but it's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. Um, I don't think Pelosi visiting was an accident. I think it was to disambiguate strategic ambiguity. Um, so one of the things that you'll see in the news a lot is this thing that's completely wrong. That America has strategic ambiguity with Taiwan. It does not. Okay, the United States' policy with Taiwan is very, very clear and has been clear for 40 years. Like it's outlined. You can look it up. You can look up something called the 3 communiques and the 6 assurances. And if you read those, you will know everything you need to know about Taiwan. But just those, the 3 communiques and the 6 assurances, and those have been around for 40 years. They haven't been public. Like they've been kind of like an open secret to people that are into China and Taiwan for forever. But they were technically like secret for a while. But they're public now. They're public things. The United States has a very, very clear policy on Taiwan, and there's nothing ambiguous about it. And so you'll hear people say like strategic ambiguity. There's no strategic ambiguity. We have a very clear policy on Taiwan, the United States. There's nothing ambiguous about it. I don't really understand like where this comes from. Like people kind of take like, oh, Taiwan's global status is somewhat ambiguous, but not the United States' policy. The United States' policy is very, very clear. It's probably more clear with regards to Taiwan than any other place on Earth. Like I can't think of a clearer place than where you just have written public policies that like outline exactly what we're doing, and the United States has stuck to them. So there's nothing ambiguous. There's nothing about changing the policy. There's no one's trying to change any policy. There's nothing ambiguous about U.S. policy. It's there. 3 communiques, 6 assurances. Look them up. It's done. Like that's it. But Pelosi visiting, I mean, Pelosi, like congressmen visit Taiwan all the time. Like there's nothing special about Pelosi visiting. So there's nothing, there's no plan or conspiracy here. Just, an old lady wanted to visit Taiwan like a congressman do. Congressmen come every like 2 months. A different congressman comes to Taiwan. It's just all, yeah, this is another one. We love strategic ambiguity. There's nothing ambiguous. Nothing ambiguous about our policy with Taiwan. Nothing. Oh man, I'm way behind now. I guess I'm way back in Taiwan talk. Dragon Demands is like no emotional attachment to Fire and Blood characters. See, this is how far back. It was like 30 minutes ago.
You have no emotional attachment, but all these random channels love, Elmo Tully, who has like 3 lines of dialogue, I think.
I know. That's these things like how are they going to portray the Strongs? Well, George R. Martin didn't portray them at all. Like, are they going to stay true? Like, none of these characters like have like lines of dialogue. There's like 3 lines of dialogue that we know from Rhaenyra, and like 1 from Otto Hightower, and or 2 from Otto Hightower. 2 from Criston Cole. It's a bit much. Like when you compare this to like my emotional attachment to Nimble Dick, or to Satin, or to like to Amory Lorch, like all of these characters, like I could pick so many characters that have more written about them on how their personality is, and like Resnack, like Hisdar's Loris, like all of these characters are very well developed. Nothing is developed in House of the Dragon, or I mean, might be the House of the Dragon. Nothing is developed in Fire and Blood. Like we have no idea what these characters are like. I mean, if I told you like, oh, the other day, like let's invent a character named Tom. And Tom, everybody, he went to the store yesterday and he bought a box of Cheerios. I'd be like, oh, what's your emotional attachment to Tom? Like, I don't like, what do I fucking know about Tom? Nothing. Favorite character on The Wire, and why is it Omar Little? Isn't everybody's character Omar? Everybody's favorite character Omar?
I love Bunk. Bunk was great.
Yeah.
Bunk and wow, I just saw the series. Who does Idris Elba play? I love him. He was great.
Stringer
Bell,
Yeah.
Stringer Bell, Bunk, and Omar Little. Best characters on the whole show, really.
I mean, I liked the kids from the first season, and I liked the kids from the 4th season. I guess Wallace, Booty, and I can't remember. I'm getting all like the middle one. But yeah, and then those are some fun characters. I was very attached to D, and I didn't like D dying in the 2nd season. Yeah, but there's a lot of great characters. But man,
There's
man.
only one character who really disappointed me, and that was Brother Muzan, because they hype up Brother Muzan as he's the guy from New York that comes down.
Mm-hmm.
He's a bow tie.
Yeah, yeah,
Brother
yeah.
Muzan supposedly has left more dead bodies than Chinese cemetery. Actual quote. And Brother Muzan is just kind of a disappointment. Doesn't really do much, even though such hype.
I'm also weirdly not a fan of Prop Joe. Like I don't give a shit about him. And other
How
people are
dare
like,
you? Prop Joe's the best. I love him.
I mean, your whole character is like a guy who's out of breath. Like, that's his whole character. And everybody assuring us that he's like a real badass as he sits there out of breath, like trying to say his lines.
I just I will say unpopular opinion, McNulty I fucking hated. Like I liked
Oh,
him
really?
initially. I liked him initially, but by like season 3,
I think
was he
that's the
really
point. I think that's really the point. Is that like you go through like McNulty, he's this scheming little rogue, and you love how he still has like a heart of gold, like, or he still is like trying to like do his job as a cop, and not like, he wins you over in that first season, and then you realize like, man, his fucking antics get old. They get old fast, and then you realize like you begin to hate McNulty just like everybody else hates McNulty, and you're like, that's why, like, oh god, like that's why everybody hates McNulty because he's a fucking dickhead, and like it's not really about helping the system; it's about himself, and
Mhm.
like so it was a really good like exploration of his character, like just going on where you're just like, oh my god, like just grow fucking up, dude, grow fucking up, you know. Oh, but he never does. He never does.
Everybody's a piece of shit on the wire for the
Yeah,
most
it's
part.
true.
All the
Like
cops.
even like what's his partner, the black woman? Um
Wow, I forgot her name too. I know who you're talking about though. Doesn't she cheat on her wife?
yeah, that's the thing is you're like, "Oh no, she's one of the good cops." And then you're like, "No, she's just fucking McNulty. That's all she is." And she even admits like, "I'm just McNulty. Like we're the same person." And you're like, "Yeah, you are." You know, like it's just what a great show. What a great show. Um in Stranger Things, uh Elle puts herself in a sensory deprivation state to elevate her power. Vecna puts his victims in the same state. Reminds me of time traveling Bran. Oh, definitely. I mean, she does it. 11 like does it like first season, right? Like floating in that pool. I mean, that was definitely like just straight up take. Like they're just definitely just giving a shout out to altered states with that, and so they um, that, and like I said, I think George R. Martin was definitely into altered states. It's reading and obviously this is all in the time traveling brand series, so I'm just repeating myself, but but it's definitely, you can't read Under Siege and not think of the altered states sensory deprivation tank. um you ever done a sensory deprivation, Carmine?
I would like to.
I did it once.
Hmm. Surprised
My
you fit in there. So tall.
No, that's actually kind of a problem. Actually, you gotta make sure your tank is long enough, because yeah, the whole experience is done if you touch the side, or touch the front or top or whatever. But yeah, no, that's got to be that's actually a big deal. Is that if you're tall, make sure that it's a good tank. Um, the but yeah, the it was weird. It was weird. I was really surprised how fast I went into kind of a weird feeling um with regards to the 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 trippiness of sensory deprivation. But the fact that like, I didn't start devolving into an ape or whatever happens to William Hurt in altered states and all sorts of stuff. But it's such a ridiculous trope. The fact that it's in Minority Report and Fringe and all these sorts of things, like sensory deprivation, and all of a sudden, man, you're super powered. Put yourself in a pool in the dark, and man, your telepathy is just goes fucking nuts.
Really? I gotta find a place.
Have you watched all the Stranger Things?
Yes, I'm caught up.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah. So I've actually only seen season one. So, but uh,
Oh, by the
pe-
way, right now I am. Someone recommended to me on Twitter to check out the Orville. It is fucking fun. Have you seen it yet?
I have not, but I've heard some good things about it. Um, every once in a while in my stream, because I was looking up a lot of Star Trek stuff for our Picard reviews and stuff. Now Jesse Gender is in my like YouTube feed
Who?
all the time, and she does like reviews on Orville and stuff, and so
What's her
uh,
name? Jessie Gender, like a gender.
Jesse Gender. She's a trans woman who is super into Star Trek
Hmm.
and and super into kind of like these high there I think so the reason she likes Star Trek is you do get to ask these sort of like high level philosophical questions about the human race and like where we're going and like everything Star Trek's about, right? Like it's never really about an alien race, it's about human beings, right? So yeah, but she will talk about the Orville and Star Trek and which ones are doing better with certain issues and people's interpretations and things like that. So I'm surprised. You usually know all the channels.
I don't know a lot of the Star Trek channels. I don't. I'm not subscribed to anybody who does Star Trek.
Okay, okay. I mean, I'm not subscribed. It just started coming up.
There is one guy though. You might be blocked from him too. I know I was banned from his YouTube chat despite never meeting him before. I forgot the man's name. Maybe chat will know. He's a Star Trek guy who does Star Trek, but he's a super feminist and he blocks everybody on Twitter. Maybe the chat knows who I'm talking about. But I've seen him a couple of his stuff. He got me into Deep Space Nine.
It's funny that he blocked you, though you never posted on his Twitter. He
I've
like
never posted on his Twitter. He just blocked me because I've never done anything to the guy.
maybe he thought it would get you out of his feed.
Maybe I'll wear it like a badge of honor. I'm sure the chat will. He's like a guy. He's a beard. Wears a hat.
Huh.
No, nobody knows him. I forgot his fucking name. That asshole. Steve Shives. Thank you, Jackson Ross. I know this is gonna be a little delayed. Steve Shives, you're probably blocked too.
this
He
is
does
this
a
is
lot of
very
like feminist shit.
this is very funny. Have you heard of Saint Olga of Kiev? She's really
Saint.
interesting in history, lol. And it's like Olga's birthday is unknown. It's anywhere from 890 to 925 AD. Like oh, I see. This is where this is going about Olga. um, but it's a long, long history. But I imagine her living 1,000 years ago that many things are legend, um, and and we don't really know what's going on with her. Um, but I'm not sure if this is in reaction to something I said on Fire and Blood or if it was on history. Real history is boring, and when and when somebody starts talking about interesting history, they're usually lying. Um, sure, interesting things happen in history. Interesting things happen today that would be put in history books, like World War III starting because Voss got into a Twitter fight with a Chinese ambassador. Did Voss really get into a Twitter fight with Chinese ambassador?
Yeah, I saw that. That was fucking hilarious. I think I liked it too. Let me see if I can find it for you. Let me see if I can find it. It was fucking hilarious too. He says the Chinese ambassador said something like retweet this if you think the West's aggressiveness or some
Mm.
stupid shit like that. I will most likely not be able to find it.
So yeah, it's so a lot of the politicians and they hire their own Twitter trolls and bots and stuff like the Russians do, but a lot of it's talking about like American hegemony constantly, and America is a pretty easy target, but it's whataboutism, right? Like, if I point, if I point out some problem over here, you're gonna forget about my problems here. You see this all the time. Like you talk to some like Israeli politician, you'd be like, "Why are you treating the Palestinians so poorly?" And he's like, "Why do you care so much about us when there's like genocide in Ukraine?" And you're like, because we're talking about fucking you, like there's female genital mutilation in Egypt. Like, oh, trying to distract
Well,
them.
I sent it to you on Facebook. This is
Yeah.
one of them. I just read it in his voice. This is one of them. Wah. Wah. Why are you saying I'm in favor of human rights abuses when other countries have done them? Wah. No fair. I'm trying to find the.
Oh, so
He's just
I
talking shit to him.
see. So yeah, no, Voss is pointing out the exact same thing I was talking about. Even like this is what's funny that I brought up the same thing even before. Well, I'm in favor of human rights abuses when other countries have done them too. No fair. Yeah,
Oh,
it's
here it
true.
is. Here it is. Found it. So, so the let me send it to you. It's a picture too. You can upload it on here. So the guy goes, "Please retweet if you're sick of anti-China propaganda by the West." And Vosh replies, "I'm not sick of it. I want more." And the Chinese government official replies in Chinese, and then Vosh replies to them, "So true, King. Only one Taiwan." So yeah, he's fucking with him.
Yeah. Tianxia. Yeah. Some unusual. I don't know. I don't know that. I don't know that I can't read that too well. That's actually some hard character. I mean the I don't know the first word there. Let me bring up my. Oh, lest the world be in chaos. Weird. That's an odd one. Okay. Hmm. Yeah, it's kind of funny because it's the Chinese, and so it's tough to be super pro it's tough to be super pro China based on their human rights abuses. Um, if you were Secretary of State, how would you handle the Brittany Griner situation with the Russian Federation, or maybe nothing different than what happened? So, um, this is a really weird. Well, first off, like the Secretary of State doesn't deal with that kind of stuff. So one of the big kind of odd things about the State Department is that it's not structured like other federal agencies, where normally you've got a pyramid structure to a federal agency where your secretary is at top and they're everybody's boss, and it just kind of goes down in a big. And so a civil for the Secretary of State though is really only the head of the civil service, which is the kind of the big myth on things when it comes to the news and who's to blame for things and stuff like this. So this always got me when people were when right wingers were talking about how like Hillary messed up with Benghazi, and you're like, Hillary, she's Secretary of State, she has nothing to do with Benghazi. So the reporting structure goes civil service to Secretary of State to the president. The reporting structure for things that happen abroad, everybody goes to the ambassador, and the ambassador goes straight to the president. So there's no Secretary of State between ambassador and president. So for something like Brittany Griner, I don't know how to pronounce her name, like the Secretary of State doesn't get involved unless somebody's like requesting it or something. Like that's just not like their role. The ambassador deals directly with the president because so for like people like talking about Benghazi, it was really stupid that they spent years like trying to bash Hillary when it's not even her, it's not her job. Like she's not in that line of command. Like it's um so but how would I mean, I don't know if there's much that can be done other than what Biden seems to be doing, which Biden and the ambassadors try to do, which is try to do, prisoner exchange and stuff like that. Um, so, you know, this happens a lot. Like Americans will be picked up abroad, and then, um, they'll try to get something diplomatically from the United States in return, and so and sometimes, you know, the country miscalculates, and that American sits in prison for a long time because the United States doesn't care or doesn't think it's worth anything. Obviously, this woman is a celebrity, so it made the news, and so the United States is going to want him back, and so yeah, they'll probably have some sort of like prisoner exchange. I think that Biden is trading. I think what I thought the plan is that Biden is trading somebody that's been in prison for like 10 years, but they have like a 20-year sentence, and so they're getting like half of their sentence or something like that. It's, you do these weird things. I don't think there's anything I would do differently. I wouldn't know how to handle a situation like that. Like woman's arrested for weed, and it's like, yeah, in America it'd be like, yeah, it's no big deal, but it's a foreign country, and maybe they planted it on her. I have no idea. So you do what you can. The hold on a sec, real quick. Is the Thai in Taiwan the same Thai as in Taipei? It is. So Taiwan has really boringly named cities. There's Taipei, which literally is Taipei. It means Thai North. There's a city Taichung, which means Thai Middle. There's Tainan, which means Thai South. And there's Taidong, which means Thai East. This is very similar to China, which has Beijing, North capital, Nanjing, South capital, and Dongjing, which is Tokyo, East capital. But yeah, Thai, and it's the only simplified character that the Taiwanese use is actually Thai. Let me see if I can bring up the traditional character of Taiwan. Oh, here it is. So this is Taiwan in Chinese. So Tai is this first character, and then Wan is the second, which, Wan, it just kind of means bay. Tai kind of means platform, more or less. The simplified version of Tai is the only one you'll ever see in Taiwan. But that's the traditional is up top on it. But that's it. And then I can show you, Taipei. Oh, let's see here. I didn't want a background like that, but here we go. And here's Taipei and Taipei. The pei in Taipei is the same bay as in Beijing. It's just that they're on two different romanization systems, and so we pronounce them differently. Prior to the Manchurians used to run China, and they spoke Manchurian, and so things were romanized according to their language. So thus we get Peking, Nanking, you'll see things like Kaohsiung and Taipei, and it's based on their language. But then when things when the Republic of China took over, like, and Mandarin was made into the official language, like, things got messy. So you're going to see a lot of weird spellings. Qingdao beer, it's just the one that everybody mispronounces that you might see in your own country, but let me bring up Qingdao beer here, which is here we go. This is Qingdao beer. Everybody thinks it's Tsingtao, but the first character is Qing, the second character is Dao Pijiu. The Qingdao Pijiu, but if you didn't know better, you see this and you go, oh, it's Tsingtao, and you're like, no, that's not how you pronounce it at all. So I don't even know why those characters, why they don't change their name. What do you think of the 289 theory that Oberyn manipulated Balon into launching his rebellion as a distraction for Viserys to evade Essos? That's So this gets into, and I talked about 289 in the Page of Lies, but a lot of fans have noted that the year 289 is an odd year in Ice and Fire, and that a lot of stuff happens. It seems to be the year that Dany is ejected from the House of the Red Door. It's the year of the Greyjoy Rebellion. It's and there just seems to be a lot of, it's perhaps the year in which Doran Martell was making an alliance with the Tyroshi. And so this year comes up a lot. And so people wonder what the hell is going on with it. So is it possible that Oberyn manipulated Balon into launching a rebellion? It's certainly possible, but we know so little about the time. I've never heard the theory before, actually, that Oberyn convinced Balon into doing this. But it's certainly possible. We know so little about 289 and so little about that time period. So, I imagined Larys as a Ron Perlman-ish, imposing yet charismatic, who ended up having to use his wits due to his clubfoot. Don't like the casting. Have you seen the casting for Larys Strong, Carmine?
Fuck. I feel like let me see. Look it up real quick. Oh, that's him. I can see him as Larys Strong. The guy's name is Matthew Needham. Let me see. Google Images. Yeah, he looks like a little weasel.
Yeah, this is Matthew Needham. You said?
Yes.
I want to make sure that I have
all one word.
I want to make sure I have the right.
Curly black hair should be the first thing that pops up. Kind of curly, wavy, sometimes curly.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I could see him being Larys.
Yeah. Yeah, I could totally see him being Larys. Yeah. So
maybe
the whole
a little
thing,
too young.
Well, he is the youngest brother, right? Because he has an older brother of Harwin, and Harwin has to be, not too far in age from Rhaenyra. If people are like, oh, they're totally hooking up, if people assume that, so he's got to be somewhat young.
I'm going by the World of Ice and the Fire and Blood by Douglas Weedy. This is the illustration for Larys, who kind of looks like he's depicted maybe in his 40s
with some sort of like, yeah, I know what you're I know the picture you're talking about. The one where he kind of looks like he's got some sort of he's a tough guy with a birth defect or something. But I don't. Yeah, I'll put that picture up too. Larys Strong. So I'm always just thinking, well, he's supposed to be Varys, right? He's supposed to be the same character as Varys, and yet, do you want him? But at the same time, if we have him visually exactly the same, that's not going to be interesting. So But you want somebody that you think is going to be a bit creepy but very intelligent. Kind of like Varys. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I really like the illustration from Fire and Blood or from the World of Ice and Fire about him. I mean, I get what they're doing. They're trying to make him like homely, like you think that he's some sort of Quasimodo character because he's got the club foot. Um, I do think I do think it'll be interesting if they go with the idea that um, the clubfoot is faked and blood and cheese are is it cheese? Yeah, cheese is really Larry Strong. I'm waiting for that theory to see if that's the case. Um, I don't know if I'm like the only person to think that because other people must have thought about like, well, wait a minute, this character's like clearly cheese is supposed to be based on Varys. Larys is based on Varys. Like, could they be the same person? Um, so we'll wait and see. I bet they won't do it, which is unfortunate because I think the idea that Larry Strong is faking his clubfoot his whole life is a fascinating one. What do you think, Carmine?
It would kind of harken back to how in the show, Grand Maester Pycelle like acts like a feeble old man, and
Mm-hmm.
then he's spry, and yeah. So it'd be an interesting idea. It depends on if Ryan Condal subscribes to any of these theories or not. Like I know you were talking about a while ago, and so were other people. The Grand Maester conspiracy. It
Mm.
really depends on or how the Faith have like this conspiracy against the Targaryens. It really depends if he wants to sprinkle those in there because nothing's confirmed by George.
Yeah. Hmm. Found out my boyfriend was cheating on me. Could you savagely kill someone with his name in the fanfic? Um, you know, Having been in relationship situations where you sort of like have hatred for somebody for feeling that they've betrayed you and they sort of give you insecurity and things like that. I honestly would say that the best resolution for someone both mentally and in the long term is is to make them disappear. Like what you want to do if you don't like this this boyfriend that cheated that is now like betrayed you and has created this like this idea of like insecurity and inadequacy in your mind, which is what happens in these situations. The best you can do is sort of just have that person disappear and be forgotten, and that's like the best revenge. Um, Having some like actual revenge, like I got somebody back, like that actually ends up creating a more salient memory. Um, whether you'll be thinking back to it like, oh, I got that person back, or this testament to their betrayal like exists in the world. This embarrassment exists in the world, and so really the best thing is to just like cut off all ties with that person, move on, forget about that person, um, become a like be better, and that's the best revenge to somebody like that is to just have them be forgotten to history.
I
Um,
love you. You're so mature. This is how you know Preston's a summer child and not a Scorpio. Because I would say, Stephanie, fuck his dad or his brother or all both of them at the same time. Fuck him. Fuck that asshole.
I
This is
know,
someone who is a Scorpio. So
yeah, but it's just we all do these weird things as well when we get hurt. Like sometimes like we get hurt, so we go out and we have our rebound relationships and we hurt those people. And then later we feel guilty and you're like, oh crap, I really hurt that person. Why did I hurt that person? Oh, right. I hurt that person because the other person hurt me. And it always like brings you back to the reminder of that person and they start living rent free in your brain. And that's the last thing you want them to, they don't deserve to live rent free in your brain. They don't deserve all of that. They don't even deserve your time to worry and care. about getting revenge on them. Like they deserve nothing. They deserve to be forgotten. Like that's how pathetic and like little they are. You know? It's just like, "Oh, well, you know what? What a piece of shit. Like you were stupid enough to cheat on me. Well, you didn't realize what you had, like, and you move on and you find somebody better because the and I know in these situations like they feel painful, but you forget that like and you're like, oh my god, the world is filled with such shitty people. And the world is filled with such shitty people, but the world is also filled with like so many incredible, wonderful people. Where like it's so many that you're like, oh my gosh, like I can't like you should really be in the attitude of like, I can't wait to go out and meet the so many wonderful, cool, interesting, people that exist in the world. And it's like, it's really such an opportunity that somebody gave you that, I mean, I understand it doesn't feel like that right now. It feels like an embarrassment and like you feel, anger and inadequacy and stuff like that. But it's like, really, it's like this, like, oh my gosh, now you get to go out and really like find cool people. Like, and there's so many cool people. There's so many great people in the world. It's sort of like, like you're at this all you can eat buffet, with like incredible food. And you've decided to like fill your plate with like some like, shitty dried piece of chicken. And somebody comes over and knocks it out of your hand and you're like, "Oh fuck, like my chicken." And it's like, one, why were you even like wasting your time on that fucking dry piece of chicken when like the fucking buffet has so many incredible, like all this incredible food? Like you're angry for a moment. Why did someone come over and knock that piece of chicken out of my hand? Did I do something wrong? Like I can never eat that chicken. Oh God. And then like you just got to stop and be like, oh my God, what was I thinking? That buffet is wonderful. Like, oh, like the best thing you can do is to just move on and forget the person and let them be forgotten. Like that's the cruelest like and best revenge is to live a better
This is a
life.
golden opportunity, by the way,
Yeah. What's
because
that?
didn't this is a golden opportunity, by the way, because
Yeah,
George
I
R. R.
know
Martin.
I know to Carmine. Carmine's like golden opportunity. Like,
Because George R. R. Martin also had like a similar thing where, remember, you'd have to donate to like some preservation of wolves or some bullshit, and he'll kill you in the next book. Remember what I'm talking
mm,
about?
yeah, I do remember that. Yeah, yeah.
So what Press is trying to say is donate $100 to the Human Fund, and he will kill off you or someone you hate.
But it's just like you. What I'm saying is that you make that person and that incident and that embarrassment live forever through a grand act of revenge, and they don't deserve that. They deserve to be forgotten about because they're not worth your time. They're not worth your time when there's so many great people, all incredible people in the world. Like it's insane. It's insane like the time I wasted on like certain exes. Like it's amazing to me. The time I wasted and then like the incredible people I met later and like, including my wife, like but even before my wife, like there was, I had some really incredible relationships with people where I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm really happy that I met that person and I would have never met that person had I settled for that piece of that previous piece of shit or had that previous piece of shit like not treated me horribly." So um it's a new day. It's a sunny new day. That's all it is. Yeah. you know Good. This is a positive day. This is a great day. It's a great day because you get to go out and meet like all these incredible people. Man, old man like me, I'm married with kids. I don't meet anybody. um, the Telltale Game of Thrones game isn't considered canon, is it? If so, canon show or books? I think it might be considered canon show, but it doesn't
Yes.
really matter too much, right? Like,
Well, there are certain things that you can assume that happened in the books that would have happened in the show. Like we were discussing a while ago, how in the books, Jaime would go to a tavern and Cersei would go in there disguised as like a wench or something. You could assume that would have happened in the show as well. In the books, correct me if I'm wrong, but when Stannis comes and takes Yara and her people, doesn't the lady of House Glover, doesn't she give Stannis a couple of House Forrester scouts to navigate through the
Oh, I
Wolf's Wood?
see. I see.
So
Um,
you could assume that maybe House Forrester would be in the show. I
hmm.
mean, maybe not necessarily helping Stannis. I haven't really played the whole thing, but yeah, possibly.
Yeah, I mean, later it isn't like House Forrester has like one of the characters is like Marjorie's handmaiden and stuff like that, and
In the game?
yeah, I think so.
Yes.
Yeah. Um,
Well, we will I will stream us sorry, I saw something. I will stream us playing the Telltale game and you can make some decisions for me because I've only played the first episode. There's 6.
yeah, yeah, and I've heard that the decisions don't really matter that much, but let's go through. We'll go through
They,
anyway.
I guess.
Yeah, but is are things canon? The show is barely canon within itself, so it's very difficult. Oh, this is back on Olga. She had Olga had a from Kiev had a full Game of Thrones tribe that she killed like Red Wedding style apparently. Well, I mean, maybe. I mean, that's the thing is that the one thing is that like it happened 1,000 years ago. So, like, what records do we have that happened? Was that how much of that is actually legend? Like, like when people say like, "Oh no, history is interesting," and then they pull out something interesting from history. A lot has changed, like in the telling and the framing and things like that. You know, did it how much it happened? I mean, just because people died doesn't necessarily mean it's interesting either. Like, but a lot has to do with like reframing stuff within the context of something else. Um, let's see here. Aren't people still in weed prison for weed here? Yes, yes, they are. I think they say like a good quarter of the U.S. prison population is in jail on like marijuana related charges. And sometimes it's like, well, clearly they were, I understand that like sometimes it's like, well, they were dealing other drugs, but the only ones they could really like get them on was the weed or whatever. But um, you know, we definitely have way too many people in jail on drug related charges. Um, your take about U.S. supporting Israel, very sad. My take is that I sympathize with both Palestinians and Israelis, but my position is that the Oslo lines a should be Palestine. Give it to them. Stop with this occupation bullshit. Just fucking give them a country. Be done. Stop building settlements. Stop building walls within the borders of the Oslo agreement. Just like just stop. Just stop it. Like it's so easy. Like the solution is so easy. Like just do that and be done. But the U.S. supports Israel because there's no strong like pro-Palestine lobby in America. Like so, everything's based on lobbying. So it's and everybody knows APAC exists. Like it's not a history. This isn't some like grand conspiracy thing. Like APAC is a thing. It's a very powerful lobby. There's no lobby going against it. So that's that's that. But those are my personal beliefs. But no politician is ever going to win um, taking the pro Palestine position. Like they just there's no voting block that's like, oh man, we got to support Palestine. Like it's just they you got a few people in the city of Detroit, and they're not, it's just not enough, and it's not significant versus like the state of Florida. So um, I think that yeah. Uh, so it's very unfortunate. I mean, I've spent a lot of time in the region. I've been to Palestine and Israel 4 or 5 times, um, and it's you know, I feel very very bad for Palestinians. They're treated very very poorly, and they deserve their own country. Or alternatively, they deserve equal rights within the country of Israel. But make it one of the two. Either give them a country of their own, or give them equal rights, like in one's own country. But having this like halfway, um, you know, occupation thing with unequal rights, it's just not good. And I don't, you know, who with a straight face can say this is like a great situation, you know? So it's let's see. What's a movie or book that I can't nitpick? Oh man, that's a really tough question. Can you think of anything, Carmine? Like one where just the
Uh,
plot is like just together?
Iron Type.
Yeah,
Off the top of my head, no, I can't think of one.
I can think of some anime or something, right? Something's really tight, something Japanese.
You can think of one or me?
I don't know. I'm hoping. I was just thinking of like Death Note isn't perfect, but there's a lot of stuff that like you know like fits together like cohesively into a story. Trying to think a story that I can't nitpick that like just makes sense. Obviously, once you get into like fantasy and sci-fi, it becomes easier. It'd probably be easiest if it's just like a small like drama that's realistic, right?
Die Hard, maybe? It seems like everything in there, to my knowledge, fits nicely and like there's no fat.
There's a lot of stuff in Die Hard that's weird.
Oh, you got
Um,
stuff for me. Here we go.
I mean, the shattering glass stuff, not killing people.
Okay,
Um,
yeah.
you know, the explosions, going up elevator shafts. Like the whole plan with like stealing their bonds and stuff doesn't really make sense. You know, there's a lot. Um, like something that I can't nitpick. That's, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's got to be like I say, it's got to be like a super simple story. In order for like maybe I'm trying to think of like maybe some sort of romantic comedy, like something really. Uh, I don't know. I do not know. You know I was even thinking of like like fairly basic movies like American Beauty, but I was like, there's stuff in there where I'm just like, no, that doesn't make sense. Um, Gosh, I guess everything can be nitpicked, right?
Pulp Fiction?
There's a million things with Pulp Fiction.
Dude,
You
here's a
don't
movie I
take,
like.
you can't take a, you don't, well, one, you don't like inject stuff straight into people's hearts like that.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that scene. Oh, how about Reservoir Dogs?
It's a good movie. It's a good one. It's a good one. It's like a bottle movie, so there's like people aren't really going anywhere. How long the person could like die of a stomach wound, but that's not that much. It's fairly realistic. Um, yeah, I have a small one about. I mean, it works in the movie because it's just a story, but like, he tells a story about dogs barking because he's got drugs on him, and in fact, like dogs don't bark, like they sit when there's drugs, but he's just telling a story, so it's fine. That's it, you know. There's not much to nitpick in that movie, I suppose. Um, yeah. Or like you know, like the divorce with like Adam Driver and about
Scarlett
like
Johansson?
Scarlett Johansson, like some like really small like movie like that. Does that work? You know. Uh, um. That's about it. I guess everything you can nitpick, everything you can nitpick to death, right? Because it's a story.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, except for Star Wars, which clearly everything about it makes sense. Um, have you seen Midnight Mass? I've heard about this. What was this again? Midnight Mass. Why did this come up before? Was it that George R. Martin said he was watching Midnight Mass? It's about priests. I think we had a conversation about why is it that Catholicism gets such a disproportionate portrayal in like TV, and people are like, because it's got the best fucking lore. You're like, okay, I'll grant that. It's got fucking world building. Young man returns to an isolated town to rebuild his life after years in prison, killing someone and drunk driving. Um, he arrives at the same time as a young priest. The community's division gets exacerbated by the priest's deeds while mysterious events befall the town. Yeah, I think George R. Martin said he was watching this, which is why it came up, but I've not seen it. It's amazing, though, apparently. Have you seen anything good lately, Carmine?
Besides the Orville, which I'm really liking, the Foundation on Apple TV,
Mm,
Apple Plus, Apple Max, whatever the fuck it is. Besides that, fuck. I haven't seen anything new. Strange things, Strange New Worlds. Star Trek: Strange New Worlds are pretty good. Oh, don't forget Westworld tonight.
yeah. I'm sure it's happening right now. Is it the last episode? Is it
Mhm.
the second to last episode?
I think second to last episode.
Um, why would a member of Qartheen assassin organization want to kill the Westerlings of all people? That's for you to figure out. I mean, they're hired assassins, so who hired them and why? That's the question. That's the question. It's not, you can certainly come up with the answer by just reading the prologue, but it's not completely clear. But there's a logical reason for why the Westerlings would be killed, um, based on the events of the prologue. It's Do you think ice dragons are real in A Song of Ice and Fire? No, I do not. I think that it's just like that was just a small little shout out to the ice dragon story that George R. Martin wrote, and that's about it. Um, let's see. Do you like tomboys? Do you mean like is this a band? What's tomboys? Do you have any idea? Um,
I'm assuming he's talking about women who are tomboys.
but I just the capitalization threw me off. Um,
I think, unless it's an actual band.
yeah, the it's an interesting question in general. Like, so I know a lot of men that what gets them is like they love tomboys, And in fact, I read an article about the like I think it was an article on like the top 10 erotic outfits or something for for women, and you get like these, schoolgirls and French maid kind of stuff. But then like down the list, you start getting um like athlete uniforms, baseball uniform, soccer jerseys, football jerseys, that sort of thing. And I think it does get into this like tomboy stuff. Like there's definitely people that like are super attracted to tomboy women. Like Joe from Facts of Life was a huge heartthrob back in the day. You know what I'm talking about, Carmine? You seen Facts of Life?
I have not seen Facts of Life.
Oh man, you take the good, you take the bad, you take them both in there. Oh, this is way too big. Can I get a smaller photo? I can't even like. Sometimes it's so big I can't even like resize it because it's like overwhelmed. Like So Facts of Life was this spin-off of Different Strokes. Um, and it was about Mrs. Garrett, their housekeeper, goes off and decides to run a school for girls. And the I think the first season had a bunch of them, but they kind of eventually kind of just settle on these solid four girls: Joe, Tootie, Blair, and Natalie. And I think there were some discussions like people would talk about, you've heard those discussions like, oh, on Gilligan's Island, are you more of a Marianne or a Ginger kind of guy? You know? Um,
I've heard that.
so the question is like, oh, like, are you into Blair? Are you into Joe? Are you into Tootie? And then there's the weird ones that are into Natalie, and like, it's like the weird ones that are into Mrs. Howell and not into Ginger or Marianne. But I remember Joe was a real heartthrob back in the day, the tomboy character. And, we kind of, I guess we kind of see, I think 11 is kind of this tomboyish character too now, right? But I think there's definitely like some people just are really into that. Yeah, does Carmine like tomboys? Is the real question. I think I think it all just depends on the day, right? Like some days probably
What?
tomboys are. Attra-
What are you saying?
I mean, people ask this all the time, like what kind of like fetishes you have, and you're just like, well, it depends on
Wait,
the
me?
day. Like
Or
some days, like you
me?
know,
People ask you this question specifically
people
about
ask me these
me?
questions. Yeah, over in life, like in life in general. Um, but it's sort of like, do you feel like pizza today or do you feel like hamburgers? Like some days, like you feel like you find yourself attracted to one sort of thing, and then some days you find yourself attracted to something else. Um,
Well, to answer Mr. Guerrero's question, no, I'm not into the tomboy girls. I'm not into. I dated one, and I did not like the experience where after we had sex, she looks at me and punches me in the arm and said, "Good
goes,
job,
hey Joe.
good
Um,
job." And to what Carl said, I do not like. I don't fuck with Brazilian chicks. I don't. That's not my. No, 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 no.
I mean, um, let me get. Oh gosh, there's this one character. I want to say. Oh yeah. So there was this series called the L Word, in which one of the characters um, was this character, and she was just going around like I think she was kind of the McNulty of the show. She was just constantly getting laid, just constantly. But she was the tomboy character. Um, but she's obviously like she's a tomboy. She's obviously beautiful, or freaking Joan Jett. Like who can't who who does not think like Joan Jett in her prime was like absolutely beautiful? Um, Tomboy or what? Who cares? Like it's Joan Jett in her prime. I mean, come on. But what are you gonna do, Joan Jett? um, somebody's asking me, getting back to now. I would never say something like this within any and every country you've got a lot of different types of people, and I have a lot of very good friends that are Israeli, that are wonderful people disagree with their own country's policies. So I can never take a situation where I'm going to say that the people of some place like stink. You know, you when Bush is when Bush or Trump is president, am I responsible for everything that happens? Like, am I responsible for the Supreme Court ending abortion? As an American, can I say that all Americans suck? So I can never ever say that. I know incredible Israelis. Some of the, so you can say I disagree with certain policies of the state of Israel, but I would never say that Israelis suck. That's not something I would ever say. I would never say that about any nationality. If we're gonna say oh, China as a country is committing human rights violations, but if you take it the other way and say Chinese people suck, that would be horrible. You can't do this sort of thing. Even in worlds where we have democracies where we're responsible for electing these states, you have to remember that not that there are losers in the democracy. There were people that were defiant. What about Jerusalem? Just cut it down the middle. Yeah, East Jerusalem. Let it be part of Palestine. And you're talking, getting into the old city, it's not too difficult to have access to Al Aqsa and the Dome of the Rock, in a sharing agreement. But it's not that hard. When people talk about dividing Jerusalem, it's usually this emotional thing of you're cutting Solomon's baby in half. Jerusalem was divided before; it can be divided again. Lots of cities exist on borders. All border towns exist on borders. El Paso and Ciudad del Juarez have a wall between them. Brownsville and Matamoros have a wall between them. Lots of cities exist with walls between them. It's not that big of a deal. The alternative is a lot worse. The situation we're in now. So, and Jerusalem, and then with the citizenship of Jerusalem people, I don't know. I mean, people still don't know what the citizenship of them are now. But I suppose if wherever they're living now, just wherever the lines go, just say you're a Palestinian citizen and you're a Israeli citizen, and stop having them have a ambiguous status, because people in Jerusalem have no nation. It's really, Israeli ones, but I'm talking Arab Jerusalem Arabs have no kind of nation. They don't have no passports. They have this weird piece of paper that gives them incredibly weird, ambiguous status, affects their lives. It's very difficult for them to leave the country and do other things, go on Hajj, whatever they want to do. Yeah. Is the Grand Maester conspiracy a bit extreme? I think that, so there's conspiracies in real life and there's conspiracies in a book. In real life, no, a Grand Maester conspiracy could never happen. But this is a book. And I'm definitely a believer in the Grand Maester conspiracy, especially if you go through the Rogue Prince slowly, like we are with overanalyzing House of the Dragon. You start seeing some really weird things going on that can't be explained otherwise. And so yeah, I totally think there's a high tower. I would even go further and say that it's a Grand Maester Septon high tower conspiracy. But we're told about the conspiracy from Maester Marwyn and Lady Dustin. I think it's definitely there. And considering that the whole thing is fucking based on the Bene Gesserit and the whole order, we're talking about Dune with their Mentat conspiracies and Bene Gesserit conspiracies. Considering it's all based on that, yeah, no, it's totally a Maester conspiracy. Likely you'll drill this in overanalyzing House of the Dragon, but why did Daemon go to the Stepstones to present himself as Aegon the First, Maegor-style male martial heir. This is actually going to be the next overanalyzing the House of the Dragon kind of thing. Long story short, the Stepstone Wars don't make any sense. Like, they don't make any sense at all. Clearly, he just needed Daemon to leave for a while characters grew up, and they needed to have him get experience in war. And then maybe he was seeding the one instance where the Triarch comes back and kills Aegon the Third's dragon, and has that situation where Viserys II is taken abroad and things like that. Like, there's nothing that makes sense about the Stepstone War, and primarily, like, the thing is, like, the Velaryons are betrothed to the Braavosi, and the Braavosi would have to go through those straits and pay the same tolls as anybody else, and yet the Braavosi don't get involved in the in the war at all, which doesn't make any sense. Like, why wouldn't the Braavosi send their fleet along with Corlys Velaryons and have the war be done in 2 seconds? It's very clear that it's just, they needed to have this, like, raging war, to have the characters, to have Corlys and Daemon get closer, and to have Daemon occupied and gain experience for a while. But there's nothing that makes sense about it. But we'll get into it. How beat up is your copy of Fire and Blood? It's electronic, so it's not too beat up.
Hey, is that the one I sent you or you sent me? I can't tell if I sent you Fire and Blood or you sent it to me.
I think it's the one you sent me. Yeah, I think
okay.
it's yeah. Yeah, I mean, I have electronic copies of both Fire and Blood and Rogue Prince and things like that. Get my voice back. Glidus did a stream last week that was like 6 hours, and I messaged him and I was like, "How are you doing 6 hours?" And he's like, "I don't know, nothing happens to my voice." It's like, okay,
iron vocal cords, that dude.
The decisions do actually change a fair bit for a Telltale game. There's a bunch of exposition in the last 5 minutes of the game when they knew there wasn't going to be a season 2. Looking forward to the stream. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Because I'd read another article that said, like, the Telltale games were like false advertising, that you think that you're...
That's not necessarily true if there was going to be a season 2 and 3, because from what I heard, there are decisions that you make that do affect, like, what kind of happens. So if there was going to be a season 2, I'd be generally surprised as to how they would do it, because there are some decisions you can't take back.
Yeah. I watched Facts of Life and had a crush on Joe. Turns out I'm bi. I was also called a tomboy back then. Yeah, I mean, I think everybody's on a sexuality spectrum, so it's not that I think everybody's a little bi, everybody's a little straight. It's fine, but it doesn't really matter. But I often talk about how very small changes in things can affect human choice. So, like, if you went to the grocery store and there's 2 bottles of ketchup and they're both equal in quality, completely equal in quality, and one ketchup is $3.25 and the other ketchup is $3.24, even though the difference in price is negligible, 1 cent, you're probably going to buy that cheaper ketchup 100% of the time, right? And so, like, a very small change can have great effects on human decision. So a lot has to do with, like, dating, and who we end up with and things like that. Like, say you only have, like, I'm gonna let's pick something random. Like let's say, like, you you like Australian Aboriginals just slightly more than everybody else. Like you find them slightly more beautiful, but it's just like nothing. Like those sorts of small changes like can actually make like half the people you date be Australian Aboriginal or something. Like I'm just picking that randomly, but the so yeah, it's a like I have a friend who was bi, and but he was like, yeah, I'm bi, but I'm like 60-40. Like I find men attractive, but I find women just a little bit more attractive, and it's just a lot easier to date women than to deal with like gay dating and stuff like that, and my parents and all this sorts of stuff. So I'm just gonna freaking date and marry a woman. So he did, like he'd hooked up with some men, but in the end, he's just like, it's just why, like, when the difference is so like, because he did prefer women slightly, and because the trouble of dating men was just not worth it for him, he went that route. Um, so I don't know, all these. I think a lot of it is also just people. There's part of us that have the egret mentality of like you want to marry somebody or be with somebody outside of your tribe, and so all of a sudden something different can be very attractive. And so like even if in a sense like tomboys say, yeah, they might look a little bit more masculine, but at the same time they just look different. They look different from other women, and that just being different can be intriguing to some people. Or maybe they're just a little bit gay, and well, it doesn't matter. Um, um, Somebody said Midnight Mass is amazing, must watch. All right, all right. This is a lot of recommendations for Midnight Mass. Lots of nitpick with the Marriage Story though. Good memories about GI Joe Toy Story lore. Any good memories about GI Joe? I I watched the GI Joe cartoon, but I did not own a single GI Joe, which all my friends own GI Joes. But I guess I didn't. I just wasn't so interested in army toys. I mean, I had a million Star Wars toys, and I liked how you could stand up Star Wars toys, while GI Joe toys just kind of fell. Um, but GI Joe, the only weird memory I have about it is even as a child, like watching the GI Joe movie and thinking that this was really weird that there was the black character played basketball and the Asian character was a ninja, and the Hispanic Mexican character was like really good at going through tunnels and like sneaking into places. And I was like even as a child, I was like, this seems kind of seems kind of racist. Like, do you know what I'm talking about, Carmine? You ever see the GI Joe movie? Oh man, I guess he went to get a calzone. It's really. Oh man, I want to.
Sorry about that.
No
Did I ever see
worries.
the GI Joe movie
There's this
or the
GI Joe
cartoon?
movie. Oh my gosh, yeah. So the GI Joe movie introduces these new recruits, and the new recruits. It's a black guy who fights with a basketball, and then there's an Asian woman who like does kung fu, and then there's this Mexican guy who's really good at like getting past walls and sneaking into places because he's like small and sneaky and can figure things out. And then there's like the regular, I think it's Hawks. This might be Duke here. I think it's the guy with the helmet. It's like Hawk's younger brother who's just like the boring cis white guy, everyday person, and he's like the leader. And this was really like their movie that they put out, like, and even as a child, I was like, really, like you want to introduce a black, like clearly you're trying to like get black people to care about GI Joe, but like you think by like having this like black basketball player who like fights with a basketball. Um, maybe that big blonde wasn't a. Here's another picture of the new recruits. Maybe he was somebody else. I don't know. I forget. Or was the helmet guy into weapons? I'm not sure. And then the movie also like establishes that Cobra is really from the land of Cobra Law, which is an Antarctic kingdom. And the Cobra commander, because he doesn't show his face because he actually has like a scarred lizard face. But okay, yeah, good times, good times. Dun, dun, dun. Joan Jett was the shit. Still rocks today. She's still hot as like a 60-year-old woman. Um, did you vote for Hillary in the general in 2016? Of course I did. What the fuck? Like, not that it made much difference as a Maryland resident. So like, Maryland always votes Democrat. But uh, Jesus, why on earth would I ever vote for for Trump? Hillary was great. Hillary was great. Um, am I misremembering anything? Was there no Mentat conspiracy? I guess not. I guess, but there were corrupt Mentat, I suppose. I guess, but more Bene Gesserit kind of stuff. But yeah, jeez, Hillary is great. I don't know why people's bashing of Hillary is ridiculous. Um, who's the strongest female character in A Song of Ice and Fire, and why is it Cersei Lannister? Also, George R. R. Martin describes nipples so much. Is Cersei the strongest female character? She's strong. That doesn't necessarily mean good, right? So, no, the fact that she's like gonna, coming back from her abuse and she, I mean, she's resourceful, she's strong. I'm trying to think, who else has done really well on that front. I mean, the only thing that kind of comes close, right, is Asha, like just being resourceful and going through stuff.
Well, what do we talk about when we're talking about strong? Like physically, because that would be Brienne, and then who's
Right, right.
deadly? Deadly would be like the deadliest female character. You could argue Asha. But what about in history?
Yeah,
Well, maybe
Numeria.
I was gonna say Jonquin, the
Mm.
one from the pool, the who guards Alysanne, I think. Her, she's a contender as well. You know, like what do we mean by strong? Like strong-willed,
Yeah,
mentally?
yeah. And this does get into like weirdly in fiction, and you'll notice this like even like Chicklet does this as well. Like that men are usually portrayed as heroes and women as martyrs. And it gets into people's heads about like how the archetype of what they want to emulate in life, And so you'll read a lot of Chicklet, and men will a lot of times have a real tough time getting into Chicklet because it'll be some historical story like Wild Swans or something, or where it goes into like how much suffering the women went through, and men kind of read it and go, why don't you just do something? Leave. Stop being abused. Just leave. Just leave. Do something about it. And it's a very different kind of like attitude. While women will read it and be like, you don't understand. She can't leave. And isn't she so strong by suffering? Um, you know, it's sort of like the praise for Jesus for suffering. Well, what did Jesus do? Well, he died on the cross, and that was really painful. But what did he do? Like, he talked to some people and he had some good speeches, and then he suffered, right? Like, is there worth to suffering? Is being a martyr, a sufferer, of value? And a lot of people like look to female characters and they determine their strength by their suffering. And I guess and maybe it's because I am a man and I've been raised that way. Like I've never really like valued endurance of suffering too much. It's not like I look at Aaron and I'm like, oh my god, what a great character. He suffered so much. Because he has suffered so much. Or even like Theon, I don't necessarily like think like what a great character. He suffered so much. He's been through so much. Like what I praise about Theon is like, resourcefulness and being able to like get out of a situation, or like his gall or his at various times, his honesty in his head, things like that. So like Cersei has suffered a lot, but what's funny is that the thing I value about Cersei is her resourcefulness. But again, I'm coming at it from a man raised on male focused stories my entire life. Uh, but some people really praise Cersei for the suffering she went through, or I suppose Daenerys going through suffering or what. So you are right, Carmine. Like, what does it mean to be strong? Like, and beyond just like physically strong, like what does it mean to be strong emotionally? Does one have to like sit there and be a martyr on the cross to be a strong character? Does that build character? I don't know. I kind of just think suffering is suffering myself, but a lot of people would disagree with me and say that no, like suffering, like through suffering, one becomes enlightened. So I don't know.
Well, with Cersei in her chapters in Feast for Crows, you kind of feel bad for her, but she's such an
Mm,
asshole that it's so difficult.
yeah.
Um, so like, yeah, you could argue that she is somewhat of a strong-willed person mentally, kinda, because she
Yeah.
is put in this situation with Robert, and then and
Fiction
then
is odd. Fiction is odd because we look to unassociated comeuppance. Like you watch a horror movie, right? And the evil characters will end up being killed by the monster. Of course, the monster doesn't know they're evil. The monster is killing randomly. They just happen to be killed, and it's like they get their comeuppance. Well, he was a jerk, and then he got killed, and he got his comeuppance. But the monster didn't kill him because he was a jerk. The monster just killed him. Like Cersei's punishment is kind of like that. Like she's a jerk, and then she's getting punished for things that had nothing to do with the fact that she was a jerk. Like, she's getting punished for having sex with Lancel. Like who cares? Like she's not getting punished for killing Robert. So, but yeah, everything gets very very mushy. I don't know. I think Asha might be the strongest character in my mind, but I just think that she can perhaps weather the most and get through it all and be resourceful. But Cersei is a strong character. Don't get me wrong. Hmm. I don't know. Anything else to say about Cersei? Hmm. Henry Rollins or Kanye as a roommate for 1 year. I think Henry Rollins would just be intolerable. Like,
and Kanye wouldn't. Oh my god.
God, I mean,
Kanye would bitch about the fact that Pete and his ex-wife dated, but which they recently broke up, and I hate that I know that. But no, Kanye would just complain constantly about why no one understands and realizes why he's the greatest artist of all time.
I mean, I guess you're right. I think you're changing my mind. Like Kanye would be too unpredictable. Like you'd come home one day and there'd be a rave in your room, or you'd come home another day and all of the furniture would be gone, and you'd be like, "What happened?" He's just like, "I got rid of it. It wasn't giving
Oh,
me a
well,
good
this really
vibe."
all depends. Like, is this Kanye, and I hate to say it, but is this Kanye before his mother died or after? Because he was a very normal person
Mm.
before his mother died, unfortunately, and then afterwards, he just never really got over it.
Yeah, I
So,
feel like Henry Rollins. You'd learn to get around like him. Like he would have his very strict, rigid life. And if you could learn what his strict, rigid life was, you could like steer clear of him and stop having like not have conversations with him, and like like um yeah, I've been changed. It definitely would be Henry Rollins, and Kanye would just be too unpredictable. Like at least Rollins is predictable, and so you can adjust. You can't adjust to Kanye.
Okay.
Hmm. Favorite Lord of the Ring character? George R. R. Martin's favorite is Boromir. Um, I mean, I think my favorite is Bilbo, but um, that's just it's kind of like a personal bias of like liking The Hobbit and Bilbo being a very likable, relatable character that you follow and feel for. I don't know if that counts as Lord of the Rings, so maybe I have to amend that. Um, I guess I like Merry and Pippin as well. I mean, I like the Hobbit characters. Don't get me wrong. Like I can't. I think Lord of the Rings is when there's not hobbits on the page is pretty dry. I love the hobbits. Like they need to be in the story. Um, and so I think like when there's not hobbits on page, like it's a bunch of very stiff conversations between elves and men. Carmine, who's yours?
I can't pick one. I recently went through my 12 hours extended edition marathon. I can't. I don't think I have a favorite character. I enjoy everybody equally, I guess.
Mm-mm-mm.
It's one of those series where it's really hard to pick one character because everyone's either like really cool or just really not cool. Like nobody likes Grima Wormtongue, and that's by design. He's not a
Yeah.
complex character like Cersei.
Mm.
So
Who wins in an unarmored melee? Criston Cole, Daemon Targaryen, or Carl fucking Tanner? Well, clearly Carl Tanner, but Carl Tanner is the greatest fighter that ever existed, right? Um, but the between them, I want to say that Sir Criston is just going to have more practice um, with with his job being Kingsguard. Like Daemon is gonna, he's gonna split his time between like dragon riding and stuff like that. Now, granted, Daemon's gonna have a Valyrian steel sword, so maybe that's gonna give him the edge. Because if you have that sword, you suddenly become a great fighter. Isn't that the whole thing? So maybe Daemon with Dark Sister wins, but against Criston Cole. But I think if you had equal weapons, Criston Cole is probably the better. You don't get chosen to be um, Lord Commander of the Kingsguard if you're not good. You don't win those melees if you're not good. And Criston did defeat Daemon um, in a melee, so I'm gonna say it's I think it's definitely Criston. Criston won in a melee when Daemon was actually using Dark Sister. So I'm gonna say that Criston is probably significantly better than Daemon in hand to hand combat.
we'll
Um,
see when House of the Dragon comes out. And props
yeah.
to this person for not including Arthur Dayne in there because everybody loves to include Arthur Dayne in these.
Jesus never caught the GI Joe Mexican tunneler. Yeah, it was pretty horrible. I can't believe any of that happened. Um, Nothing but love for Cobra. La 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 la. Uh, Best state of the union is Tennessee. Is it? Um, I mean, if you're into country music, I suppose. But no, if somebody said you have to live in one state for the rest of your life, I would not choose Tennessee.
Colorado, that's where it's at.
People are really liking Colorado these days. It's really exploding. But I mean, I guess if I had to pick one, I mean, if I was really going to pick, I mean, it's a hard question because if we're really going to pick one state, you'd want a state with a lot of different environments and stuff. So like California's the biggest, and so you'd kind of get um, California. I mean, obviously Alaska's bigger, but like California, maybe I'd live in Hawaii. I don't know, but living on the East Coast isn't bad. Maryland's not bad. It's a perfectly comfortable place to live. Um, People tell me Jersey is a perfectly comfortable place to live. Kansas, intolerable, right?
Hey, Kansas is making moves. I sent you that message about
Mm-hmm.
like them protecting their abortion shit. So I don't know, like Kansas
Carmine
making moves.
Carmine sent me a message and he said Kansas didn't suck today for once, and I was like, that's pretty cool, yeah.
Making
Um,
moves.
yeah, it's a pretty big deal. I mean, I guess we've been talking spicy politics this whole time, but it's quite a statement about the United States. I'm trying to remember when the Ireland abortion vote happened. Um, and what the result was 66.4%. So for many years, Ireland was famous as one of the most restrictive places in Europe for abortion. There are very like other restrictive places now, like Poland and Malta are very restrictive, but it tended to be the Catholic countries. I mean, though Spain and Italy were pretty pretty liberal. Um, and so this was a big deal in Ireland for a long time. The fact that it was very difficult to get an abortion, and there were every time a woman died from either a medical mishap or a self-induced abortion, like would make front page news. And so eventually they had a national referendum, and it was just overwhelming. Like 66.4% of the country voted to legalize abortion. Um, and so then we come to the United States, where we have a fairly conservative state, Kansas. I think they voted for what was Trump's win? Trump versus Biden in Kansas. I want to say, let's see the result here. 56 to 41, 42%. Um,
That's closer than I thought.
yeah. Well, I mean, they say, okay, like that's 14-point difference. So, Trump wins Kansas by 14 points. Keep in mind, you know, Biden won the popular vote of America by a lot. So, so, you know, but that's a fairly significant, like fairly red state, Kansas, and the fact that like they in the Kansas Constitution, there's a protection of abortion, and so there was a vote, a very confusing vote on whether or not to remove it. Very poorly worded. I think the thing said, should Kansas value both the mother and child? Vote yes, and you're like, And anyway, the no's came out resounding. It was 59 to 41%, like 18-point swing in a country that Trump had a 14-point swing on. It was enormous, showing that like American public opinion is much like Ireland's public opinion on this issue. In the mid 60s, are going to favor abortion rights, versus the people that want to make it illegal. So, I gotta take. Hold on. Have to send a message here. Hold on. So now there's the question is like there's usually this historical precedent of the election after a president wins, usually the other party wins because America likes to balance things out and the party in power gets blamed. But now people are thinking that maybe the Democrats will hold Congress, because it was such a boneheaded move from the Republicans, such an incredibly unpopular thing, to try to ban abortion in America. Like it's just now. I'm not saying there's going to be a shift of 18 points, but if you can shift America 2-3 points on an election, that's enough to cause a sweep. That's all you kind of need. Okay. In season 7 watch, is there a reason behind the image of Tom Ford as a stand-in for normies unfamiliar with Game of Thrones. It's really funny with the voice. Let me think about um, Tom Ford. Did I use Tom Ford? If I did, it was a complete accident. Um, I don't know why I would use. I I think I just chose a random picture, and if it happened to be someone named Tom Ford, it was by accident. Um, but I'll have to go back to season seven watch, and it's been I haven't watched season seven watch since season seven, so it's been like a good 5 years since I've watched season seven watch. So, but yeah, I'll see on that. Um, Tom Ford. I don't remember like Tom Ford the designer. Um, this is him, and if I chose him, I probably just chose him because he looked like a random guy, like somebody that like if you walked down the street you wouldn't think anything of. Like you just be like, that's a dude. Um, right? He just looks like nobody. Like, oh, what does he look like? You know, he's a man. He's got brown hair. Does he have like a big nose, small nose? No. Is he handsome? Is he ugly? No, he's just he's just a guy. He's just a guy. Pretty Maris. Pretty Maris is a pretty strong character. Um, Midnight Mass, trigger warning, Catholic guilt, above 9,000. Yeah, I never understood Catholic guilt so much. Like, I guess you have to be raised Catholic to really understand it, but it's like a big part of their existence.
By the way, because you mentioned rewatching Game of Thrones, and I wanted to say this out loud because I forgot last time, and I know you did too.
Mm,
For those of you who don't know, Preston and I are doing a commentary track for Game of Thrones season one,
mm.
and you put it on your Patreon, right?
Yeah, that's up there.
So if you guys want to want to revisit season one with us, I think we are up to episode two now. I'm down to do one more before House of the Dragon hits. Would you be down to do a commentary track for House of the Dragon?
Yeah, sure, probably. We just
Because I
gotta
know
we have
we're
to.
gonna be
Yeah, we'll be very
fucking
busy, but I think we might be able to flip
busy.
in something like that. So we'll see. Yeah,
Holy shit! I'm down to do like the first episode. Cause fuck. It
yeah.
will be on Patreon, guys, and of course, you don't have to be like subscribed to both of ours. If you're not a fan of mine, or a fan of Preston's, which all of you should be. Go support him on Patreon. It's on there. We can't really put it on YouTube because, yeah, certain copyright issues. But it's on Petronius, patreon.com. What is your link? Sweet Robin 9000?
It might just be Preston Jacobs. Um, the yeah, Carmine always doing the hustle, always doing the hustle.
Hey, you gotta get out there. Come on.
Why don't you like Henry Rollins? I do like Henry Rollins. I think he's a fine person. I think he's a fine human being. I have no problem with Henry Rollins, but he's a very intense individual. He's a very uncompromising individual. He never stops talking. He's stream of consciousness. Like watch him in interviews and stuff, like on panels, and he's just like it's 95% him talking. Like he cannot stop. Um, and so it's more that, and I think he would recognize it too. Like he just has a personality problem of just like being unable, like being very rigid and always just talking and stuff like that. But he's a good soul. There's nothing. I don't think there's anything wrong with Henry Rollins as a person. Like he's fine, but it's just he'd be a lot. He'd be a lot to be around all the time. Like my God, And I've met the man. He's and talked to him. He's a very rigid, talkative, intense individual. Um, yeah,
He's a very intense stare.
yeah.
I've never seen anyone with such an intense, like, just stare. He could, like, cut you just with his stare. It's crazy.
Oh yeah, definitely. And he like practices all of that. Um, I mean, Jesus, like, he poses. This is it's just, so. Um, Best city in the U.S. is Memphis, Tennessee. I have never been to Memphis. I have been to Nashville. Um, and having friends that have gone to I've had friends go to Vandy, and the I don't know, lot of people, a lot of them have mixed feelings on Nashville and their experience at Vandy, because it's changing a bit. But keep in mind, like, like southern colleges have different ways of existing. Like, like you everybody dresses up in like a suit and dress, like men in suits and women in dresses to go to the football game. And there's Confederate flags in the basements of frats, unironically, and stuff like that. I mean, hopefully it's changing a bit, but certainly when in my heyday of college, the people that I knew that went to college were like, yeah, no, there's just like, there's Southern boys, and they tell jokes about black people unironically, and you're like, oh god. So, um, predictions for the midterms. It's hard to say. I mean, I think Democrats definitely keep the Senate. Whether they keep the House is is hard to say. There's plenty of leftists trapped in every single red state. This is something people also like don't think about. We do think about the world being you know so red state, blue state, right? But in fact, when these elections happen, you go to the most red state in the union and it's like 60-40, and you go to the most blue state in the union and it's like 60-40, which means 40% of the people are still liberal. Like, it's not that they're like, existing there, like, it's not that different. A lot has to do with like extremists coming out, and whether or not they can put up billboards and stuff, and how it feels a certain way. Like, living in Maryland, you drive to West Virginia and all of a sudden you see Trump signs appear. And you just wouldn't see that in Maryland. And there's a lot of reasons for that. As one, Maryland has much stricter sign laws than West Virginia. But like, it's quite a shock. But when you actually look at the vote structure, like, what's the real difference between like 4 out of 10 people believing something versus 6 out of 10 when you're on like a day-to-day living? Like, you're finding plenty of people that think like you in both environments. Like, it doesn't really matter. There's still conservatives lurking in blue states. There's still liberals lurking in red states. So a lot of it's the laws too. Like being in Maryland, we were really fast to ban smoking in bars. And thank goodness, it was such a great thing when that happened. But I remember like going down to Virginia, and Virginia being one of the last states, and being like, really, you guys are still have smoking in bars? Like, oh god, like, and it took so long. Even though, what's the difference between Maryland and Virginia? Not really that much, culturally speaking. Like, they're very close in how they view the world, But it's that's the thing, is it's much more of an urban rural divide, and America is more mixed up and homogenous than we kind of think. Um, Tell us about Dreams of Ghosts and Indians. First draft is finished. Just working with the editor right now on making it better. That's all. But we're very busy right now with other things, but I'll probably get back into it after House of the Dragon and have it finished up. But it's first draft is finished. So it's nice to just have it existing. Um, no chance Dems hold the House. Apparently, know something the rest of us don't. But uh, um, people really care about abortion, and we don't really know how much has been how much it's going to be affecting things. US 2 gerrymandered, it would be tough, but it was gerrymandered last election. It was gerrymandered before that. America is actually like max gerrymandered already, so you can't really gerrymander stuff anymore. So we shall see. We shall see. There's a lot of Republicans that are pro-choice, um, more than you think. Like, let's. Preston, do you smoke much weed when you were younger? Not much. I was not a huge weed guy, but you know, in my early 20s, I tried some weed. Um, it was it's whatevs. The but I don't understand all of the I mean, I guess it's the same thing about people that go crazy with Funko Pops or whatever. Um, like the people that would go like bong crazy and like watch um that Dave Chappelle movie on repeat or whatever. Didn't really get it. I like that. Memphis isn't even the best city in Tennessee. This is funny. Rollins has a bit of a Stannis vibe. That's interesting because Stannis is kind of described as just like physically like intimidating to people. Like they just don't want to. They don't want to. They don't want to like even like try to go against him. But at least Stannis lets other people talk. Yeah, holy fuck! I went to a football game at Old Miss. Football Saturday is a big deal. Yeah, there's a lot of these weird things about the South that I don't get. Like the being proud of moonshine or something, and
Doesn't
uh,
moonshine make you go blind?
yeah, I guess it's not good for you, whatever the case. you know, so who knows? But yeah, they're pretty crazy. They're pretty crazy about football in general and have weird traditions down there. Keep in mind that like when my friends went to Van, and like I say, Vandy's likely changed in the past like 20 years, but like people would describe things like women going to parties and being like, so they test the women and they don't offer them drinks and they see which ones go get their own drinks because a woman is not allowed to get their own drink. They've got to be offered a drink. And you're like who the fuck cares? Or like men that insist on like standing up when like women leave, like get up from the table and leave the room, and like holding doors and shit, and like being really angry if you use the word pickup truck rather than just truck. Like really random shit. Like yeah, we call it a pickup truck. But why don't you just call it a truck? I was like, because truck can be anything. No, but like a truck by itself is that. I'm like, no, a truck can be anything. What are you fucking? It could be a garbage truck. It could be like a dump truck. Like there's lots of trucks. Like no, a truck. This is a truck. Like that's a pickup truck. Like really being like really angry about these sorts of things. Fucking South, man. They aren't like that in Kansas. Do they call it a pickup truck or what?
It's not. It's not the South. It's the Midwest. So it's
Ah, I know. You're fair enough. You're right. You're right. You're absolutely right. And that's the big thing is like when you start thinking like the difference between red states, that there's a huge difference between red states, like and how they act, Um, like you go to Wyoming or Montana and people are really unfriendly. But one thing I'll grant about the South is they're super friendly, you know. Um, but yeah, you're right. Those little things, like how much redneck they have in them, how much Confederacy they have in them, how much just like independent living, like living off the grid kind of stuff. Because it's not like you go into North Carolina and people are like, yeah, they like fishing and stuff, but it's not like they're mountain men off in the wilderness Montana folk, Chuck in Northern California wants to secede. Yeah, that's never going to happen. But yeah, of course, people um want to separate out. Mm-mm-mm. Um someone comment about my Baltimore accent. My grandparents from Maryland call it Merlin. Yeah. Balmer. Hey, hon, let's get down the road to the O's game. Yeah, I love that Cal Ripken. He's gonna go all the way. He's the Iron Man. He's going to Ocean City, hon. Yeah, go to Green Turtle. Um, get rid of the redistricting committee, and you'll see how bad we can gerrymander California. Now, yeah, but I mean, California is pretty much nearly every representative from California is Democrat already, even without gerrymandering. I mean, you gerrymandered for the last, I think, because it's like 57. How many California reps are there? I think it's like 57, right? 53. And I think how many Democrat? $42 are Democrats. So I mean, they could probably get a few. They could probably squeak out another 4 or 5. Maryland is already gerrymandered. So like Maryland's completely gerrymandered for Democrats. So like you can't. Does Preston think it's 1842 down here or something? I'm just saying, man, there's some weird stuff going on in the South. There's a lot of that Southern boy thinking. And granted, I grant that it's changing, but like, there's definitely a lot of that. Like, I used to know like even really liberal people from the South that are like, nah, man, you've got to hold a door for a lady at all times. And I'm just like, dude, like, you hold the door for whoever's coming. Like, like it's not the big deal. No, you gotta hold the door for a lady. And you're like, oh my God, like you just got a different weird way of looking at the world. What's your Hogwarts house, Preston? I've never been a big Harry Potter fan. I don't really know much about it. Like I've seen the Fantastic Beasts movies and I've seen 2 of Harry Potter. I've seen Prisoner of Azkaban and the Goblet of Fire. And so I think I would be Hufflepuff or something. I don't know. What, I got my choices are what? Slytherin, Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, and what's the 4th one?
Ravenclaw.
What's Ravenclaw's deal?
I don't really know much about the houses.
Like Slytherin are like the bad guys, right? And then Gryffindor are like your elitists.
Well, Slytherin, not exactly. Like there's a lot of douchebags in there, but the main thing with them is that they value like ambition, leadership, self-preservation. They're cunning and resourcefulness.
Mm-hmm.
Ravenclaw, they value intelligence, knowledge, curiosity, creativity, and wit. Hufflepuff value hard work, dedication, patience, loyalty, and fair play. And Gryffindor is bravery, daring, nerve, and chivalry.
So I'd be Ravenclaw? I'd probably, I guess I'd be Ravenclaw.
Yeah.
Fine. Yeah. Yeah, I guess I'd be Ravenclaw. All I know is that Newt Scamander is a proud Hufflepuff. Because he's like, people's man. People's man. Your choices are smart, brave, evil, and eating food. Oh. You do have to hold the door for a lady, or anyone else too. Both of my grandmothers would unironically rise from the grave if I didn't. Little manners go a long way. So here's the thing about like benevolent sexism and like living a regular feminist life, right? Like, so a lot of people talk about like, oh, well, there's so many things that like we do for women. Like, oh, we hold doors for them and like women and children first and pay for meals and treat them like ladies and princesses and protect them. And, you can't, boys aren't allowed to hit girls, and things like that. But the rule of thumb is like, if you treat everyone like a lady, then that's just how you should be existing, period. So like nobody should be getting hit. Like when people are like, you don't hit girls. No, you don't hit anyone. Oh, you got to hold the door for what lady? You hold the door for everyone. Like once you like treat everyone like a lady, you realize that that's actually like regular civil society. Like why are we like treating men like this? Why is it okay to hit women like or to hit men? Like no, it's not. Like the idea is that like if you treat everybody with like the same level of respect that you'd treat the the one person on your list, then everything is going to be great. Like if offer to pay for people, regardless, because offering to pay for people is nice. Like um but that's just the whole thing, right? Is that we should all just be like treated like women or like ladies, like. And the odd thing about how like sci-fi and fantasy and action movies kind of handles feminism is to say, well, let's just make everybody a badass and like make everybody violent. And if like the women are killing women and the women are punching each other and they're being just as horrible as men, then that's somehow progress. And it's like, no, we should really have it the other way, where everybody's acting like a lady. Like that's really, So, these are these random questions. Soft drinks, don't you call them Coke, Pop, or soda? LOL. I know someone that says Coke for all soft drinks. So there's this thing in America that's regional about various pronunciations of various word choices and stuff like that. So for instance, in Wisconsin, a drinking fountain is called a bubbler. And for a long time in Wisconsin, an ATM was called a time machine. And so you really had like out of state Wisconsinites like going up to people saying, hey, do you know where I can find a time machine? And people being like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, what? Like, so, yeah, there's some regional stuff on this kind of stuff. Like, I don't really care, but I've always grown up calling it soda. I don't like the visual. I don't like the sound of pop. And I certainly like think Coke is specifically like cola. But in the South, like people will be like, oh, give me a Coke. And they'll be like, what type? And they're like, Sprite. And you're like,
Yes, that is. I dated a woman from, even though North Carolina is not really the South, kind of is, kind of
yeah,
not, but I dated a woman from North Carolina, and that's what she said. She would go to a restaurant, and the waitress would ask, what would you like to drink? Coke. What Coke would you like? A
yeah.
Sprite. Coming right up.
Right. Or like, what Coke would you like? Pepsi. You're like, what? Like, but really, they're like, it's the South. If you said Pepsi, they would kill you. Like, oh god.
In the Midwest, it's pop. It's over here.
Okay.
Over here, it's pop. Yeah.
I mean, at least where I grew up in the Midwest, because I was in Wisconsin and Chicago, like it was soda. But you get these weird differences. Whether something's a Bowie knife or a Bowie knife, whether it's a drinking fountain or a water fountain or a bubbler. Some people say bagel, some people say bagel. Little stuff like that. So these are like the discussions that like college freshmen like argue about in their dorm rooms, because kids from all around the country like come together and they're like, what? You think it's a drinking fountain? It's a water fountain. But I do think it's too bad Time Machine went away, because that was a fucking great thing that Wisconsinites called ATMs, because it stood for take your money everywhere. And it's just kind of cool. Like, oh, I got to find a time machine. So yeah, people say milk and bagel and but whatever. We're naturally like we're just biologically gonna think that any people that speak different from us are like wrong, and it's grating. It's just one of those things where you're like, you can easily find an outsider. It's a evolutionary advantage to like be able to like be like, that's an outsider. Danger, Will Robinson. So it's just that's it. But this, like, I know it doesn't matter, but like the T and often, like I hate when people use the T and often, but like I know that like objectively, like there's no difference between often and often. Like, it's amazing how often people get so angry at me over pronunciation of like made up ice and fire names, like so much, like it's like every video, like somebody has this salty, like, you know, it's pronounced Maester Runciter. And I'm like, because I called it Runketer, and it's like, it's a made up fucking name. Like, what? Like, why would you, why are you on my ass about the pronunciation of Maester Runketer? So.
I will always remember when I first started doing YouTube videos. There was a person who wrote like several paragraphs of why I was an asshole because I called her Melisandre instead of Melisandra, and ever since that fucking paragraph, like I'm more of an asshole about it now. Like you know, come into my comment section, I'll fight you back. But back then, I was more like, so I just
Yeah.
from that day forward, I changed it to Melisandre. I will not
Yeah.
say
I
Melisandre.
mean, George R. R. Martin doesn't even pronounce them like
Dothraki? Yeah, I know.
Dothraki, and like he's not consistent. I've seen different interviews where he's used different words, and like, you know, it's just that I know an Ariana that ends her name with E, so I said Ariana for a long time. I said Viserys when I first read the books, and I was like, oh, it's Viserys, and you know, it just doesn't fucking matter. Like, who cares? Like what hills are people dying on?
For me, it was Daenerys.
He's
I
like,
pronounced the like day like
product placement. First off, you got the characters wrong because there's a traditional la on my Coca-Cola. So there's actually it's actually really really small, the Chinese on here. That's really weird. Huh. It's very 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 hard to see. Um I pronounced Bran as Braun until I watched the TV show. Huh. This is the funny one. The Brienne, like the Roy Dotrice. Brienne. Like, are you saying brain?
or
Brienne?
Patar.
Yeah. I pronounced Danny as Danny. Yeah, I could see that. I mean, with a single N, kind of makes sense. The only, I think, though, with certain things is with certain names, when there's an equivalent name in English already, we kind of default to that. So, like, um, I'm trying to think of some other ones that are like spelled weird, but we're just going to default, um, like Quentin or something, like, or um, I guess that Brienne is a real name. Like, well, I guess we know Brienne. I know Brianna's. Um, but I think that affects people. Like, even if it's spelled weird, we're gonna, or like Peter. Peter is probably the big one, right? Peter Baelish, right? We say Peter because Peter is a real fucking name, but Roy Dotrice said Patire, right? And it's like, well, why not Patire? You know, Jane Poole as Jean, huh? It's just that both Jane and Jean are both names. So Martin instead of Martine, like, yeah, this one was weird from the beginning. Like, I always thought it was Ironwood or something, and then people are just like, no, it's like Ironwood. And I was like, oh, I guess because Ironwood, I guess Ironwood. So I switched to Ironwood. You kind of default to like just what the name, what real life might say, but Kimmery is upset. This is the opposite of spicy politics. Damn it. Damn it. Kevin Lannister. Wasn't there a YouTuber that like he went on this long rant about how ridiculous it was that there'd be a character named Kevin? And then everybody's like, dude, he's like Kevin's a real character from uh from the uh from the book. Yeah. Oh well. Um any last things you want to chat about before I go, Carmine?
There was a conversation I was having with someone a while ago. I'll bring it to you and the audience as well.
Hmm.
So uh, they were asking me like, when do I think Dave and Dan really started to become a fucking joke in the community? Because once again, like you and I praise Dave and Dan quite a bit, even though I
Hmm.
personally think their hate online started with you, kinda. Like I
Hmm.
think you were like one of the first few YouTubers. I think you were the first YouTuber to really like destroy and eviscerate Dave and Dan critically. And of course, but we also have to remember like a lot of the really amazing scenes in the first 3 to 4 seasons were their creation. I always,
Hmm.
harken back to Cersei and Robert. You loved Theon and Maester Lewin. Maisie Williams and Tywin for me. That was a great change. But then, of course, later on, they start to go down a hill. When do you think like they became a meme? Like when they became a joke? Because they were like Hollywood's dream team. Everybody wanted them, but they were committed to thrones.
I will tell you I think one of the first cracks was Podrick. Like honestly, like when they made Podrick like into a sex god, it was kind of all ridiculous, right?
That's a little silly, but okay.
Yeah, it's a little silly. That was like the first crack where people are like, "Well, that's odd." Like, what season was that? Like,
I
was that way back in season two?
That was season 3. So
Mm.
Tyrion gives Podrick a gift for saving him from Sir Mandon at the
Hmm.
Blackwater, and then he gives like Podrick. I get no. He pays the prostitutes to have sex with Podrick, and then Podrick comes back later and gives him the money back, and then that's how it really began. I believe that was season 3.
Yeah. So I mean, there are definitely some cracks, but I really do believe that like Dave and Dan, when given time, when given like and when putting in their effort, they can create really great stuff. I think they are writers, and when you give somebody time to put together writing, they can do it, you know? And I think when they have the freedom to like write their own stories, they're better at it than um trying to fit George R. R. Martin's plot like empty plot points, you know? And so I think that was a big part of it. Like for instance, we praise over and over again like the Robert Cersei writing, you know, like and how these were some really great scenes, but it was all created. That was not a George R. R. Martin plot point, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Had George R. R. Martin said like no, like these characters have to just completely not care about each other because that's and then they went forward and tried to write those scenes, they wouldn't have worked with a George R. R. Martin plot point in there, you know. So like when given their own freedom and when given time and care to do something, they can do it. I just don't think that. I think they got very busy. The show became huge and it became bigger, and there was more spectacle, and there was more things to write. Too much, like it's if you're writing one scene, that's a lot different than writing an entire episode, you know? So I just think they were spread thin. They didn't have as much time. And when you don't have as much time and you have these plot points that you feel like you need to hit, that don't even necessarily feel like what you would write, that things are going to end up in that that weird like that. So you know, I mean, I don't think I caused anything. I think it was a symptom. But
I always make that joke, but I'll tell
yeah.
you my personal opinion when I think they started to become like that meme, because you're right, like cracks started forming for me. I like season 5, but they formed in season 5. You started seeing it with like Bad Pussy
Mm,
and amongst other things, and then season 6 where like what half of the characters are just standing around waiting for something to happen,
yeah.
like Cersei and
Hmm.
Tyrion. But when it really started to become meme was we had just come off the heels of like episode 3 of season 8, and the whole end of the White Walkers. It left a lot of people unsatisfied, and now it was time to deal with Cersei and Euron Greyjoy's fleet. And at this point, Daenerys, like Dany, has like she's lost to the Iron Fleet.
Hmm.
Like they've fucked her up at least like twice already. Like,
Yeah.
they destroyed her Dornish Ironborn allies, and they stranded her Unsullied forces in the Westerlands. And then, like, we get to episode 4, when she had to, like, regroup with her army back on Dragonstone, and then she gets ambushed again by the Iron Fleet for a third time in a row, losing not only a good chunk of her remaining naval forces, but also her closest confidant and a dragon. And now, like, normally this is a story decision that, people would bitch about, but that would be the end of it. But it wasn't, but because at the end of the episode, Dave and Dan come on, and they explain, like, the reason behind their decision, and that's where we get the infamous, she just kind of forgot about the Iron Fleet.
Yeah.
Which is a huge insult to not only the character but the audience's intelligence, in a sense, because Dany has scouted out our forces before, like enemy forces before, back in season 3. She knows how to scout, but she didn't do it here. A lot of people call it lazy, a lot of people call it like just dumb, but no, I think this was the moment where Dave and Dan, Dave specifically, became like a meme
Mm.
and kind of a joke in the community.
Real quick, somebody's in the chat was like, "What's this?" And it's like, "Well, it's the maze from Westworld." Yeah, there's a lot of these discussions on like what went wrong, and I just really do think that like if you don't give a writer time,
So you
to
keep
like,
using this word writer. I think Dave and Dan are the perfect fans. Hell, I would argue they're YouTubers, because you've done this too. You've taken elements from the book and even the show and fixed it because you're such a fan, right? And they're just really good, intuitive fans who see something and go, well, this could be added to improve. And that's what a majority of the first 4 seasons were: improvements on the story. Even George R. R. Martin himself said, oh, I wish I had that scene with Arya and Ned where Ned's like, I'll find you a lord, who's worthy of you. And she goes, that's not me. George loved that one, and he wished he could have put it in his books. And they put it in the show. So, or the Chaos is a Ladder speech. George really liked that. Everybody loves that Chaos is a Ladder shit. That survived into popular culture.
But now dealing with like the fan fiction project, I will say that there is an enormous difference between having a blank page and writing something versus like somebody else throwing their page at you and you like changing it around. And even if like what you change around in the end becomes like unrecognizable, it's still a lot easier to start with something and change it than it is to just start with something like completely fresh from nowhere. But so I do think that they were very good at that, like taking George's ideas and improving them, or adding this and that. But those were all like sprinkled in. Like, it's easy to have like one good idea, but coming up with a lot of good ideas, as they always say, like musicians have their whole lives to make their first album, but then they have 2 years to make their second, which is why like follow-up albums always suck. I do really think like they didn't, like, no one gave them the time and quiet to just sit down and make things work. That I think they were rushed.
I disagree with you, because by the time season 6, hell, I'll even argue by the time season 5 came around, season 5 ended with Jon Snow being stabbed. Like, this was like peak Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Them not having time and resources, I think, is a cop-out, because at this point HBO would do what they did with Jerry Seinfeld. They would, like, because when Jerry ended Seinfeld, the show, NBC came to him and, like, we're about to drop truckloads of money on his lawn to get him to do another season of Seinfeld. HBO would give Dave and Dan the world to keep doing Game of Thrones and do it better.
I don't know why they didn't bring in like good writers. Like, you've got a team of writers, like, let them do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, you've got all this money. Bring in somebody else that like is good and you can trust. But there was just so much of the problem of people sitting around while waiting for plot points to happen. And then
that's
them
HBO's fault.
Once.
Because remember, they wanted to do 7 seasons based off like 7 books, seven gods, 7 seasons. That's 7 kingdoms, 7 seasons. But they had to change things to get to the 8th season. So remember, everything that happened in season 8 and some of 7 was supposed to all happen in 7, 6 and 7. So that's HBO.
I'll get back to some stuff real quick because there's some good points made by some people in the comments here. My friend with an English accent has trouble ordering water. So he has to say, "May I have a cup of H2O?" because people can't understand his water. Um, but Talisa was not an improvement. Talisa was kind of a weird. Talisa was a really bad idea, but I don't necessarily think that the writing between like the Talisa Rob scenes were like bad. But then again, you have a couple good actors, but I don't necessarily think their dialogue was so horrible. Other than the fact that the idea of a traveling nurse like sassing a king on a battlefield um, was ridiculous. Like that's a really dumb idea.
I want to agree with you, but Anna Chaplin's so fucking beautiful. I just and those ass shots. Woo, woo, those ass shots.
You're
I'm sorry.
blinded. It was a really, really, really dumb idea, but I don't know if necessarily all of the scenes were that bad. Like I just remember Catelyn being angry at her, them having some romance together, her having the whole like I'm pregnant, don't you want to name your kid Ned, and her getting stabbed and feeling all of that. I have to go see when we do a rewatch. We'll have to think about whether how well the Talisa plot went, and if it was like whether it was really a sign of all the things to come. Like it was a sign of not caring about logic. That's true. I'll grant that. But people didn't really care that much because, if something's illogical, people will let it go if it's good and it's pulled off. But they
What were
did
they
want to
going to do? Bring in Jane
rush off.
Westerling and have her like be stabbed in the
Yeah.
stomach?
I mean,
Because remember, Lisa gets killed off.
yeah. I mean, they could have just had Westerling and have her get killed off. Would have been the same thing.
Hmm.
I mean, wouldn't have made it much of a difference. But I think they just it was easier to have them walking a battlefield or something outside than have the whole like injured seduction thing. I don't know. They did want to rush off and do Star Wars. It's true that they were, and I say this is a lot to do with like them having enough time. Is that when they're spending all of their time worrying about their personal life and advancing their careers and like wheeling and dealing and meeting with producers and stuff like that, that takes time. That takes up a lot of time. Like when people forget I mean, when you have work, right? Like regular work. Say your boss wants to have a meeting and it's at 3. Like it's not just that the meeting's at 3. Like you get that email and then you have to process like what the meeting's about. You got to research what people are going to talk about at the meeting. You got to find out who's going. And then like leading up to the meeting, you've got to be ready. And you're like, okay, you're not really getting any work done 30 minutes until the meeting because you're constantly like, fuck, the meeting's coming. And then you have the meeting. Then afterwards, you need to take a break because you've been in a meeting for an hour, and you have to like deal with the fallout of the meeting and the write-ups and stuff like that. So that 1 hour meeting isn't just 1 hour. Like you end up eating like 5 hours of your day because of a 1 hour meeting, because of like lead up and decompression and all these sorts of things that happen. So it's the same thing. Like Dan and Dave, we've got a meeting with Disney tomorrow. Like, fuck. Like, do you think they're getting anything done writing wise the entire day if they have a meeting with Disney that afternoon? Like, no.
That's why they have assistants.
Yeah, I mean they should have outsourced it and stuff. They should have brought in writers and stuff like that.
Well, I can also like sympathize on some level because for what 9 years their day every day was Game of Thrones. They shot on location, they lived, they breathed, they slept, they ate Game of Thrones all day every day.
Yeah, you get sick of it and you want to move on. I mean, it is a job and they're looking for their next thing. So Everyone's forgetting how they cast a literal porn star in season one. But the literal porn star, like, did anyone have a problem with Shay?
Oh, that's right. She was a porn star, and so was the Indian woman, season 2, who
Yeah,
sat on
yeah,
Braun's
yeah.
lap.
Yeah, she is too. Yeah.
You're gonna say her name? You know her name by heart? Even I don't know.
No, but for my recent video, because they filmed two versions of it, or at least they added clothing electronically. Like I was trying to find a scene.
What? No, they didn't. What
Yeah,
do you
like
mean?
look up the Braun um
No, you're
uh,
lying. That's
Blackwater
impossible.
uh hound scene. And you'll see like
Looking this up
one
right
where
now.
she's dressed in almost like an Indian sari.
What? No, I don't believe
I
you.
swear. I swear, I swear.
No, let me see this. This one's from 2012. It can't be. No, that's not it. What? Chat. You guys got to help us out here. Find this. Find this right now. I want to know. I want to see this. Send this to me on Twitter. Someone tweet it out to me. I can't find it on YouTube. It's not here.
Here we go. I got it. I got it. I found it.
No, are you serious?
Yeah.
Hold on. I'm
So I don't
plugging
know
in.
if
I'm
they like
plugging
if
in.
that's like digitally added or
Ugh, hold on.
like, and I've never seen it like animated or
I'm getting my external hard drive right now where I have all the episodes. I got to see this. I don't.
no,
But
she's obviously, if you like watch the episode, she's going to be naked in it. Like, but I'm just saying that like perhaps in a certain zone or something, she's
yeah, but why add clothes? Are they putting this on Fox? Like, what are they? What the fuck? What's the purpose?
I don't know. I don't know like the different environments that they have Game of Thrones in or what. But yeah. But like this looks like someone took a screenshot and right, because even if someone were gonna digitally add clothes, they wouldn't do it with the subtitles on. So it looks like someone took a screenshot of this scene. Um,
Let me see this. Where's my Game of Thrones? There it is. This is season 2, episode 9. Wait a minute. I'm wrong. I'm wrong. Are you there? Did I
yeah,
fuck
yeah,
this
I'm
up?
here.
I'm wrong. She has clothes on in my. Oh, I was wrong. They did
In your
not digitally
version?
add this thing. In my version, yeah, and I downloaded this eons ago. Wait, no. He takes her clothes off. There are those brown nipples. Delicious. But no, he takes her clothes off.
Oh, is
Uh,
that it? I thought she was
that's
just
it.
naked the whole
Yes.
time.
No, I thought so too, but it's one of those things. It's one of those things where we think Vader said, "Luke, I am your father," but that's not what he said. So
I
we're
see. I see.
misremembering it.
So it starts out she has clothes and then they take them off. Okay. All
Braun
right. All right.
specifically takes her clothes off. Yes.
All right. I'm gonna just gonna answer these last two super chats and then I gotta get going. Um, I like my job. Make more elsewhere for harder work. What's your calculus when moving on from a job? Um, on the one hand, like moving on for a job, like is good in the sense that it keeps you motivated and moving on to new things. You don't get stuck in a rut. I will say that if money is your only thing you're thinking about, it's really difficult to go backwards. Like there's a psychological thing about going from high pay to low pay. Like it's very weird for people, and so in many ways you can get golden handcuffed by choosing a job that has more pay because you never want to people never want to take pay cuts, you know. And so I know a lot of people that are like when they became lawyers, they're like, oh well, I'll just do the corporate stuff for a few years and then I'll do the kind of law I want, and then they do the corporate stuff and then they're like they never want to take that pay cut and so they end up doing it for life and they never do what they want. So I mean, just think about that. Like, are you willing to take a pay cut in the future? Does it matter to you? I think trying new challenges is rewarding in itself, but but and not getting stuck in a rut. But be careful about only thinking about your salary. And then love you, fan since 2016. Haven't missed any of your videos except House of the Dragon stuff. I like your political views and calming voice. So I've been told the opposite, that I have a quite alarming voice. That
I
it's my
have no
voice.
idea who ever told you that, but they were wrong.
Alarming? Do you think I have a calm voice? That's nice.
I think you have a fine voice, fine American guy voice.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Okay, okay. Um, and inflation is a pay cut. It is, but weirdly psychologically, like people are willing to take inflation more than that. But yeah, it's weird thing how the human mind is. But we but it's just odd that people get stuck. Like they just don't want to feel like they're going backwards, and they use the number of the salary as the thing. You could easily just like have not as nice of a car, and like it's done. Like like that's it. Muchas gracias. Anytime, anytime. But I should get going. The Numeria series has to happen. Boom, I've said it. We'll all see about this House of the
No,
Dragon.
it does not. Stop it. And to the person, Mr. Who said that, Mr. Abdulov, who said he's been a fan since 2016. You can't be a Preston Jacobs fan if you haven't seen the Hot D stuff. You got to watch the Hot D stuff as well. Hot D, Hot D, Hot D.
Hot D, it's not super popular, but considering, um,
But the Nymeria spinoff, you mean one of the spinoffs in the War of Five spinoffs? Because everybody calls it that. Remember that, Preston?
oh yeah,
Everybody.
yeah, everybody called, and at the time everybody called it that, and yeah, yeah.
I don't think not even no YouTuber is that clever to think of it that.
You're right. You're right. I'm trying to think of like things like the community comes up with is like Clegane Bowl and Lemon Gate. Like that's not. There's nothing clever about those things. You just added bowl to the end of something and gate to the end of something. That's not nothing clever. I mean, Hot D isn't even clever. It's just literally spelling, reading out the letters.
Before are you wrapping up, by the way, here?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Before we wrap up, guys, remember we are doing commentary tracks, so be sure to subscribe to Preston's Patreon. It's on there. We've already done the first two episodes.
Always doing the hustle.
I am not. Stop it. Don't listen to him. Make sure you sub to Preston's Patreon. Come on, get on there. We have some stuff on there, some exclusives that's not on YouTube. So.
Been calling Preston a tinfoily hack on Reddit since 2013. It's funny. It's funny to think about like how the entire kind of rep, the Preston Jacobs rep, is like changed over time. But we'll see. We'll see. We'll see how much. See how things go and how Hot D goes forward. All right, thank you everyone for joining me, and we'll see you guys next week. It's only 2 weeks away, Carmine. 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
Dude, there's gonna be so much videos we're gonna post about this crap. The review, the Q&A stuff, the podcast crap.
If you get your streaming going, are you going to try to do the pregame and then I'll do postgame?
That's up to you. Whatever you want to do.
Okay.
That's completely literally up to you. I would love to get Trey on, Glidus. By the way, someone asked like, why don't we have Glidus on more often? Keep in mind, Glidus is like a time zone is completely different than mine and Preston's. Yeah. That's why like it's easier for me to get Trey because Trey is only an hour ahead of me. So
yeah, exactly. We never know when these people are sleeping.
Mm-hmm. And plus, I don't want to bother him. But I'm down to do a whatever you want to do, homie. It's really up to you. I just need to start streaming more. Get back in the good graces of YouTube.
So these stream, the whole reason I chose this time is that we're going to be doing the post game live stream here.
What time does House of the Dragon come out though? 9.
It's gonna be
9
9
p.m.
p.m. All the HBO shows are always like 9 p.m. Sunday.
Okay, so it's gonna have to be 8 p.m. my time because that's 9 p.m. Eastern. So 8 p.m. my time. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, whatever you want to do. I'm down to do
Well, I
like a
mean,
pregame or
we'll see,
postgame.
we'll see if I'm able to join because I got to take kid to daycare like
Oh,
during this
that's
thing.
right.
So I might not be able to be on the pregame, which is why like it's all post game.
No, no. Well, pregame would be 7 a.m. for you.
Yeah, I mean, I could like come on for a second, and then like gotta get my kid ready. Gotta
Mm-hmm.
gotta you know gotta have deal with the meltdowns. Don't want to go to school. Don't want to wear shorts. That kind of stuff.
We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. It's gonna be
Yeah,
busy though. Oh, gonna be busy.
yeah, yeah. So he's saying it's actually like you know um, in Australia it's not that bad right now timeline wise, but I think he's got a Gladys has a job, things like that. Can't just
Pretty
be.
sure he has a job. I think he's gonna do streams with Alt Shift X. I think I have no
Mm,
idea, but I think has his own stuff too. And then Phil, the Issues guy, who I would love to have on too. I love Phil. Phil's the
right.
man.
Okay.
Phil's got
Fine.
his own stuff going on. We
Swifty's
got.
got Gladys. We got fucking Trey. We got fucking Phil the Issues guy. We're gonna try to get Yoyston from Men of the West. He can talk about the the Lord of the Rings competition. So we'll see. Okay. All right. Bye everyone. See you next time.